Good morning and welcome to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of September 26, 2023. We'll begin by taking attendance and I'll ask our General Counsel, Mark Silberman, to call the roll.
Chair Carroll.
Here.
Vice Chair Bland.
Here.
Commissioner Chapin.
Here.
Commissioner Chen.
Here.
Commissioner Chu.
Here.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Here.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Here.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Here.
Commissioner Lefty.
Here.
Commissioner Master.
Here.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Okay, welcome again to the September 26th public hearing and public meeting. We're going to begin this morning with two public meeting items, which are applications that have already had a public hearing and are back today in response with proposals in response to the comments made at the public hearing. And then we will move to our public hearing agenda. And with that, I will turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through the agendas.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everybody. Start today's Preservation Department agenda with public meeting item number 1, LPC 23-05495. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 611, Lot 13, 52 Charles Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District, a Greek Revival style row house built in 1839 to 40. The application is to construct a rear yard and rooftop additions. This was last presented at the public hearing of June 27th, 2023, and no action was taken at that time. The applicants will present their revisions to the proposal after we open the proceedings.
Okay, so we'll do that now so that it's seamless. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to open the proceedings? And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, the applicants may begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cass Stackelberg, Higgins, Quaysbarth and Partners. And I'm here with Mike Schmidt of Mike Schmidt Architects. I'm going to run through the presentation today, and Mike is available also if there are questions of the more technical variety that I'm not able to answer. 52 Charles Street is located on the south side of Charles Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. It is one of a row of 5 row houses that were constructed in 1840. I'm going to provide a little bit more background in this presentation than we perhaps typically would do at a public meeting, just because there were about 4 of the commissioners who are here today weren't here during the public hearing. And we think that the history of this site and this group of the changes that have occurred over this group of 5 houses are particularly significant in the work that we're proposing today. The overall scope of work includes extensive facade restoration that we're working with the staff on, including new 6/6 wood windows, metals restoration, facade, masonry restoration, repairing and repainting the cornice to bring the building back into a better context with its neighbors. The elements that are before you today are a rear yard extension and a small rooftop addition. As Corey mentioned, we presented this in June. There were 4 of the commissioners of the 6 in June that were supportive of what was presented, with a few comments that we have addressed. We will present those to you today. I think it's also worth noting that at the public hearing, there was supporting testimony from the local council member, Councilmember Botcher, Village Preservation, acknowledging that this was a unique situation that is being presented here, particularly at the rear. They were supportive, as was Community Board 2. An aerial view of the block, and I'll just point out the 5 buildings in the row because I think I'm seeing the context. This is, let's do it with my hand. This is 48, 50, 52, 54, and 56. And you can see that this block is one of those blocks that was bisected by the cutting of the 7th Avenue extension for the subway construction, which obviously had a significant impact on the block. And has resulted in a fairly dense block, the sort of ad hoc nature that occurs in the center of the block. But what's I think perhaps most significant is that of this group of 5 houses from the 1840s, 3 of them already have full height extensions. One of them was built with a full height extension. One had a full height extension added by 1859, and then another had a full height extension that was added under commission review. So I think we're always sort of searching for the definition of appropriateness. Our feeling is that something that was constructed originally in this manner was added to historically and then under commission review collectively, in our mind, represents an appropriate change to a historic structure. This is the existing view looking across the Charles Street elevation, 52 at the center. And this is a rendered view, again, just to emphasize the point that a lot of the work that's being done here is bringing this building back into connection with its immediate neighbors in the row. Turning the corner, this is a view looking south down 7th Avenue South. The building on the far right was constructed in the 1920s, soon after the cut of the 7th Avenue extension. At the center is this newly exposed side elevation of the full height extension at 48, one of the row of 5, a one-story taxpayer, and then a new building constructed in the last 7 or 8 years on the south side of the block front between 10th Street and Charles Street. An existing view looking across 7th Avenue now. And this is again, sort of right to left, we have that angled rear where the 3-bay wide rear extension of 48 have been clipped by the extension of 7th Avenue and now has a 7th Avenue facade. That's here. This is 48, 50, 52, our project site, the historic extension at 54, and the commission approved extension at 56. What we presented back in June was a full height extension aligning with 54, 56, and 48, a modest rooftop addition, and then a 3-bay high bay window off the rear elevation. And the commissioners, a few of the commissioners had comments about that feature and also about the alignments at the top of the building, particularly the rear elevation at the top. And so the revision redesigns the bay so it is now just at the garden level and the parlor level, and you do not see it over that one-story taxpayer fronting onto 7th Avenue. And we've aligned the top parapet at 52 to match up with the height of 54, which also addresses commissioner comment. So stepping back, these are two side-by-side views from 1911 and 1916 showing the impact of the 7th Avenue cut for the subway extension. And you can see the project site at 52 Charles Street highlighted. And the map on the right, I think, illustrates how that mid-block portion of the block now became exposed. You can also begin to see some of the back buildings that exist as early as 1916, which are more visible in some of the later maps and existing photographs. But stepping back, this is a pair of maps. So on the top left and right is the earliest map we found of the site from the 1850s, and then the map on the bottom, both an overview and a detail from 1859. The top row shows the original extension at 48. That was one of the 5, and the building already had the row already had an extension when it was completed. And then by 1859. 54 had already also gained an extension. So those yellow frame extensions off the back at 54 was replaced with a brick enclosure, full height enclosure here, see here. So 54 and 48. So 2 of the 5 by the middle of the 19th century already had full height extensions. Continuing to 1911 and 1955, I think the key thing to point out in the 1955 map here, particularly this detail, is just the introduction of a full triangular block or structure on this corner lot, the full extension at the rear now at 50, and then the back buildings within the block. So this block already has a certain degree of density. It's not the bucolic sort of rear yard that one sees in the Greenwich Village district. And then, of course, also illustrating the extensions at 48 and 54. Some existing photographs at the rear from left to right from the roof of 52 looking to the rear yard. No significant features obviously in the rear yard, and then looking back to the rear elevation, there are no significant features off the back of 52. In fact, it doesn't even appear that there's a corbelled parapet up at the top above those upper floor windows. And then you can see the side elevation in the middle, the side elevation of the historic extension at 54, just clad in metal panning. Looking from the roof now across 7th Avenue, you can see the density right behind 48 and 50 with this one-story restaurant extension. And then the view on the upper right, looking west through the donut, quote unquote, just illustrates these very tall three-story back buildings that exist within the yard. On the right is an image from a 2016 presentation that showed an approval for a rooftop addition larger than what we're proposing at our neighbor directly at 54. And then the photograph on the left illustrates the rear extension, commission approved rear full height rear extension at 56, which now aligns with its neighbor, which you can see on the right margin of that photo at 54. So collectively, these changes are consistent with things that the commission has seen over time in this district and has approved. And just quickly to run through line drawings, existing and proposed elevation for the front, you'll see that there's a small rooftop addition. It's about, I think, 600 square feet. It's set 6 feet away from the east parapet to allow for FDNY clearance, so we don't have to add a railing or ladders up and over the extension. The commission, back in our June hearing, the commissioners found that it was modest and appropriate. Turning to the rear elevation, the left elevation is what was presented in June. The right elevation is our revision, again, lowering that bay window so it's just at the garden level and the parlor level, and the upper floors now, the parapet at the top aligns, and the windows align as well in the upper floors. Existing section here showing the height of the building and the cellar level. And then a proposed section, the front portion at the cellar is being retained at about 6'3". That's going to house the mechanicals, boiler, et cetera. And then there's about 2 feet of excavation under the existing building, and then more of the excavation happening directly below the extension. No excavation in the rear yard beyond that. Side-by-side sections. So you can see the relative scale of the addition and the realignment of the roof. Floor plans, which I'm happy to come back to, but the upper left illustrates the scale of the addition relative to the overall roof, and then 6-inch clearance off the east parapet line. And then again, existing and proposed views along Charles Street showing the restoration of work and knitting the building back into this row of 5. And then across the rear, again, the changes at the rear, eliminating that visible bay, aligning the top parapet, and knitting the building back into this sort of continuum, this evolution, particular to this row. We think this is a unique condition in this district, where we have 5 houses. 3 of them have already had extensions, original, historic, and commission approved, which for us sort of defines what makes appropriate change in this district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
Do the zoning for the lot that has the agave restaurant, the white right there on this facade, does that allow for this to be built and go up taller?
Is
The lot that is adjacent here on the street face.
right? That's honestly, I don't know, Mike. Could you speak to the zoning? I'm not sure.
Sure,
Mike, can you just come up? Yeah, just.
my name is Michael Schmidt, the architect for the project. We looked into that, and the zoning would allow the white building to go up taller and block all of this, but it's so narrow of the lot.
Yes, it's a sliver if it would ever happen.
It would ever happen, that's correct. But yeah, I mean, it's a street front, and it could go up higher. We couldn't figure that, we couldn't figure out if one could ever build on that or not higher, just because of its physical geometrical size.
But it is an unusual condition because the way it comes through,
Right.
this has become a street wall, but this one condition seems like a missing tooth there.
But zoning does allow us to do our machine.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so I think we can move to our discussion, and we did not receive any additional comments on this, and as Cass mentioned, there was support from the local council member, community board, and village preservation, but village preservation did comment on that bay window, which has been removed in this design and replaced with 3 punched openings. And so the last time we saw this, I think that everybody was supportive of the rooftop addition, and we had mixed discussion on the rear yard addition. And so we'll have that discussion today and include those commissioners who were not present last time, but we'll start with those who were present. So Commissioner Ginsburg, I think you were comfortable with both the rooftop and the rear yard addition last time, given the historic
Yes,
development here and the context.
I think this is appropriate.
Okay, thanks. And Commissioner Master, I think you also were in that camp.
Yes, I agree. I think it's appropriate.
Okay. And Commissioner Jefferson, you, I think, were comfortable with it, actually preferring that it align, but you did also have, like Village Preservation, an issue with the bay window, which they've removed.
The issue for me is the history of the site and the building itself and the historical fabric of the building, that part of it. And I could go along with fellow commissioners that it's appropriate.
Okay. All right. And then Commissioner Goldman, you thought that they made a very good argument for the addition, but I think felt that there should be some sense of the original volume maintained.
No change.
Okay. And Commissioner Lutfi, I think you also agreed that the rear yard addition should be reduced by a floor last time.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, I still feel that way because I just feel like the original form is subsumed.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So I'll move to those commissioners who weren't here last time. Commissioner Chen.
History, I can agree with Commissioner Ginsburg.
Okay. Vice Chair Bland.
I think I'm at the same camp. I think if the public is running so I think, but I guess by staff level, restoration of the front of the building. And back to this one, we might have said that top floor should be held down, but given the fact that the neighbors have already breached that line, I think I can go along with the idea that it's appropriate in this case.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Chu.
I would agree with Commissioner Bland in his statements. I think it is appropriate.
Okay. And Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't find this appropriate, but in the context and the fact that we previously approved a similar, full height addition, I can approve it in this particular instance.
Right. And that a couple of them did exist actually in the 1850s. Okay. So I think we have enough to move ahead with an approval as presented. Commissioner Ginsburg, can you do that motion?
Yes. With regards to LPC 23-05495 52 Charles Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, a Greek revival style row house built in 1839-40. Application is to construct rear yard and rooftop addition. Oops, second here. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend, sorry about this. I recommend that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the visible rear yard addition will not project further into the rear yard than the neighboring addition or disrupt the continuity of the central green space, that the material and design of the addition consisting of red brick cladding and punched openings at the top two floors with larger window openings below will recall a typical masonry material palette and articulate fenestration found at secondary facades throughout this historic district. That the full height rear yard addition in this particular context could be found appropriate due to the presence of two visible full height rear yard additions to the west which this proposal will match in terms of massing and volume, that the design and materiality of the rooftop addition featuring standing seam metal cladding and punched windows and door openings will be in keeping with the material and form found at rooftop accretions within the historic district, and that the flue extension, while seen over the primary facade, will be seen within the context of other visible flue and will not draw attentions to this to themselves, and I recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
No.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. Move to the next public meeting item.
But the next item is public meeting item number 2, LPC 22-10944. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, block 8095, lot 42, 100 Prospect Avenue in the Douglaston Historic District. This is an arts and crafts shingle style house built in 1910. The application is to legalize alterations to the outer retaining wall and the installation of a pool retaining wall and fencing in non-compliance with LPC permits, and the installation of a porch without LPC permits. This was last presented at the public hearing of March 14th, 2023, and no action was taken at that time. I believe the staff will be presenting revisions, but the applicants are also here to answer any questions if we need to.
Good morning, Commissioners. Preservation staff, Megan Boyd presenting on behalf of the applicant and give a summary of the current proposal. This application is for legalizing work in violation and in non-compliance with permit and has come before you previously on March 14. At that time, no action was taken. So this is the text photo, historic text photo. These are the destination photos. So here, one violation is about the painting of the retaining wall and replacing the chain link fence on top of it. Several commissioners expressed concern about the gray paint color, none expressed concern about the chain link fence. And a retaining wall here was left exposed instead of being buried in the landscape, and a glass railing was installed instead of a wood railing. In the previous hearing, some commissioners suggest that vegetation and or regrading to screen off the visibility. There is also a shade structure constructed without an LPC permit. A field commissioner had concern about aspect of the design. And last, there is also a wood fence located here a little forward of the house, but none of the commissioner expressed any concern about it. So the following photos shows that the applicant has provided current photos to help show that the retaining wall, glass railing, and shade structure are more screened by the evergreen as this tree has grown in. So just going along to the rear at 340 Street. So the applicant has also confirmed that these vegetation are not fully in growth yet. These are to be double in height and width in the next 2 years. They are 12 feet now and can go up to 22 feet in 2 years. So in this view at the gate, you can see the shade structure, the glass railing here. So there is only limited view at the gate, and the applicant is proposing to plant more evergreen to screen off the view. The retaining wall is also proposed to be painted a beige color, as you can see here. And these are some photos that's been taken 2 weeks ago. Just showing the current condition. And the last few pictures here showing what was presented at the hearing in March 14 on the bottom row, and the top is the existing photo, just showing how the evergreen has grown. And previously of the retaining wall and shade structure. So here is the retaining wall and the railing. And for the shade structure, applicant is proposing to paint the 3 vertical member gray. The applicants are here and available to answer questions.
All right, commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicants? Or for Maggie? No? Okay, all right. So I think we can then move to our discussion, and I'll also note we didn't receive any additional comments on this proposal. And the last time we saw this, as Maggie stated, we saw proposal to paint the perimeter wall and replace the chain link fence on top. But it would still legalize changing the grade around the pool and installing a glass railing on the retaining wall at that location, and also to legalize the shade structure that was constructed at the pool, and then to legalize the fence at the front. And as Maggie said, I think everybody was comfortable with the front fence at the front last time. And really the comments were about the appropriateness of the glass railing, which I think many people commented was visible last time, and trying to simplify the shade structure. So the applicants are proposing to paint the elements on the shade structure, but have also shown photographs to show that the plantings have come in just even since our last presentation in March. And much of what was visible last time is no longer visible. And I think the intent is that the plantings would continue to grow and obscure any remaining visibility. So we'll begin the discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. I think it's simple, and I think that plants do wonderful things for situations like this. And I think in this district, given the distance from the street, the glass railing, which we otherwise have difficulties with, for me, it doesn't cause a problem here.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with Commissioner Goldblum, appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I think can be appropriate.
Vice Chair Bland?
Just so boring. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
I think it's appropriate as well.
All right, Commissioner Master?
Appropriate. I think that the beige on the retaining wall is a huge improvement.
Great. Commissioner Chu?
Appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I think I suggested trying the beige color or some earthy color, and I do think it's a considerable improvement, and the trees will grow over. I do think it's kind of unfortunate that this applicant is creating a wall, like a castle around, so that you can barely see the house. But we don't govern vegetation, so I can find this appropriate.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think we're in agreement. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make the motion?
Regarding 100 Prospect Avenue in the Douglaston Historic District, the application is to legalize alterations to the outer retaining wall and installation of pool retaining wall and fencing in non-compliance with LPC permits and the installation of a porch without LPC permits. I find that the building scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District landmark. I recommend approval, finding that the work has not damaged or eliminated any significant architectural or historic features of the house or the site, that the wood fencing is in keeping with the existing fencing at the site. It's typical of fencing found throughout the district in terms of height, material, details, and finish. and that its placement, which does not project further into the front yard than the adjoining larger porch, does not detract from the house or site, that the metal fencing is installed only at the side and rear of the site, and its dark finish, simple design, and thin framing and placement adjacent to evergreen plantings help it blend with surrounding landscape, that the metal fencing, glass guardrail are the minimum height required by code for fall protection. The shade structure, glass guardrail, and retaining wall within the rear yard is simply designed, and as evergreen plantings mature, they'll be only minimally visible, if seen at all, from the public thoroughfares. The shade structure is in keeping with the types of subsidiary structures sometimes found in rear yards throughout the district. But the shade structure is small in relation to the house and site, and harmonious in terms of materials and finishes. And that painting the roof supports to blend with the surrounding framing will help simplify the structure's design, and that the proposed neutral tan paint finish for the perimeter wall will help the modern retaining wall recede from view within the surrounding landscaping.
Okay, and Commissioner Chapin, I'll ask Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
For Carol,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Letby.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. Thank you. Move to our public hearing agenda.
Okay, we'll start with public hearing item number 1, LPC 24-00948, an application for a certificate of appropriateness, number of Queens Block 8018, Lot 1, 806 Shore Road in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a Mediterranean revival style freestanding house designed by Lionel Moses and built in 1908. And the application is to construct retaining walls.
Morning, Commissioners. Lisa Schaefer, Preservation Staff. Before the applicant shows you this proposal, I just want to briefly explain why you're reviewing this. The Douglaston Master Plan allows for retaining walls at the perimeter of the property up to 18 inches high, and retaining walls elsewhere on the property, preferably for planting beds, up to 8 inches high. And materials for retaining walls are specified to match historic materials, which are typically stone, brick, or stucco. This proposal is for walls that are higher than what's allowed in the master plan and being constructed of a material that is not included in the master plan.
Morning, Commissioners. Kevin Wolf, I'm the architect for the project. This is a landscape restoration following a invasive, severe drainage project. To restore the landscape, the engineer for this, Jude Cozzolino, requested that a series of retaining walls be built on the sloping site. There's almost a 10-foot grade change in spots. My suggestion was to reduce it to 2 walls that are 2 feet high, and 1 wall at the very top of the site has a lawn. The rest of the site is planted out to slow down the water, which grass, although it absorbs water, speeds up the flow. So this is a strategy of using these 2 composite stone walls, by the way, with a blue stone cap that are tumbled to look more naturalistic, and they will be screened out by hedging and other plantings. So this is the site. The left-hand side is Shore Road. The top of the site, it's a corner site, is Knollwood Avenue, faces the Leonard Bay. This is the rendered plan. The section we're talking about, the 2 stone walls, are here at the top where there's a lawn, and at the perimeter up to the driveway. So both of those are 2 feet tall. This is what it looks like right now after the year of digging. There are no sewers here. There are no storm sewers. There are no drainage sewers. So this is a new septic system going in, plus elaborate drainage to control this part of the manor as underground streams, high water table. 1907 house has been plagued by this for over a century, and no one has ever solved it. The drainage project does. This is what it looks like from Knollwood looking southeast.
There's a large sun porch across the front facing Little Neck Bay. This is up Knollwood looking toward the bay. And the wall, the new wall that we're talking about would start here. It's set back 5 feet so this hedge can fill in. And this is a close up of that. You can see the slope. It's rather steep in spots. And this is the west facade that faces Shore Road porch. And these are the 2 walls highlighted. There is a circular terrace that you're not reviewing that is here, which is the overlook of the bay for the family that lives here. And this is the material, the Brussels tumbled composite stone. There's drainage behind that that's helping with the drainage situation. This is what it looks like. Close up, it's got a natural bluestone cap, coping stone. And these are other composite concrete walls that are in the district spread out. 2 of them are on Knollwood, actually. This is 316 at the top. House on Ridge Road has one that's somewhat similar. Farther down Knollwood at the other end of the street is this one at the top. And then at Bardsley Road is another small retaining wall. This is the view from the circular terrace that is to be built. So this flat area that you're seeing closest to the porch is the only lawn. The rest of the site gets planted out. Pollinators, a ground cover, and some ornamental plants. And this is the area that will get regraded to accommodate the stone walls. This is at the upper level, looking north. This is down at the sidewalk. This is the steepest part of the site. You can see there are remnants of other stonework that happened over the years. And this will show you the section. So you can see that the existing section, this is the slope from the upper part, and up here, here is the terrace and the 2 different stone walls that will help to cut the flow of water. This is without any landscape, so you can see the stone walls. There would be no grass, as I said, on this slope. It would all be planted out with ground covers and native plants. And this is with the plantings in place to screen both stone walls. So the edge along Shore Road, the public way, is a tall hedge, and then a somewhat lower planting at the upper level. The terrace is to the right of the porch. And it includes some no trees. This is the before and after with the stone walls in place. And this is existing and the proposed completed.
Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I just wondered if it's the applicant's wish to have a high hedge because the stone wall does not along the street does not look that attractive to me. And, you know, just to leave it that way with the lawn might be quite nice.
Yeah, the hedge is doing 2 things. It's screening the wall. It's also creating an edge. The manor traditionally had 14 miles of privet were planted by the Rickard Finley Realty Company. So this is in that tradition. Privet doesn't survive in the conditions that we have today with lots of shade. So this is a type of arborvitae that can be sheared that is evergreen year round.
So would the privet have been that height, do you think? Or?
Yes, there are some privets in sunny spots that survive.
Still there.
My house are tall.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Okay, other questions?
I was going to raise the same issues, Commissioner Chapin. I think that given the site and the natural beauty of the area, I tend to agree that just keeping the retaining wall, the stone wall, may be more appropriate than the building a fortress of hedges.
Okay. All right. Why don't we see if we have public testimony? Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? All right. Not seeing anyone in the room, I'll turn it over to Gregory Collett to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We did not receive any assignments for this item. Oh, I see that Historic District Council has their hand raised. So Historic Districts Council, I will promote you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC commends the applicant for following LPC protocol and submitting a proposal for this work, which doesn't always happen in this district. HDC supports this application. We find the height and material of this retaining wall tasteful and appropriate. We hope that the proposed shrubbery does not add to the height in an inappropriate way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking at our attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Queens Community Board 11 recommends approval, and Douglaston and Little Neck Historical Society recommends approval as well. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So the testimony is largely supportive. I think HDC also questioned the hedges. I don't know if you want to address that again, or if there's anything else you'd like to say before we move to our discussion.
Yeah, I would just say that the hedges are part of the tradition, as I mentioned. The development company in 1906 planted every property until the 30s. They maintained the hedges. Something happened called the Great Depression. And it continues to be a tradition. It is unlike other planned developments that are the same era where both the trees, swamp maples, silver maples, and the hedge were part of the components that the development company designed in. So for me as a landscape designer, I see this as a continuation of that tradition. The clients want that as well, and it has the added bonus of screening out not the highest quality wall in terms of it being natural. I think it's an attractive alternate that it's not going to be so prominent right against the street, and the evergreens hedge will screen it year round. Privet, by the way, does lose its leaves somewhat during the winter, depending on the variety. So this gives you complete coverage.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mark, I really think that we don't regulate the plantings anyway, right? So it really.
Correct.
Okay, so really the issue of the planting is something that is not before us, but we appreciate you're taking the time to talk about it being part of the tradition. Okay, so we'll begin our discussion now. Oh, we have to close the hearing. Sorry. Vice Chair Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion for the 2 retaining walls. And they're before us largely because of their height and the cast stone material, which is the material as the applicant presented that we've approved elsewhere in this historic district. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I'm quite familiar because I did the test pit down the road because this area has a very clayish soil. Yeah, and given that we're not ruling on the landscaping, I think that this could be appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bland.
Yeah, the questions the century, the figure was run out. I think it's quite appropriate and obviously necessary.
Commissioner Lutfi.
I agree. It seems that they really need the retaining wall. But I also think the solution is very thoughtful and it is nice in this instance, as opposed to the last situation that you can see the house. I mean, it's lovely.
Okay, Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson, sorry, Commissioner Chu.
Yes, it's an appropriate solution to a difficult site condition.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
A handsome solution.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I think that one, is absolutely necessary to have these 2 retaining walls. And secondly, I think the architect, the landscape area, has done a very nice job of concealing the one wall. And in the case of the second wall, it was interesting to hear something I didn't know about the Douglaston district about the privet hedges. And, I think that he argues rightfully that is appropriate for that reason. And in addition, sometimes when you see these renderings, you say, this looks really nice, but the material is not as nice as the original stone. And that was in the back of my brain too when I was looking at it. So, it's okay to obscure it for that reason, if nothing else. So it's totally appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum
I think it's appropriate.
and Commissioner Ginsburg.
Appropriate.
Okay, so I think we're in it. We have a consensus. Oh, and Mark, will you call the vote? Oh, sorry, we need the motion. Jumped ahead.
Okay.
Chen, would you make?
I'll do it fast.
Thank you.
In the matter of LPC 24-00948 806 Shore Road, Douglaston Historic District. The application is to construct retaining walls, noting the building style, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the steep slope of the site warrants the installation of retaining walls of the proposed height, that the proposed decorative concrete block retaining walls recall the colors and textures of the natural stone used in retaining wall throughout the historic district, that the walls will be well integrated into the site and will be eventually concealed by mature plantings, that the proposed work will not diminish the special character of the historic landscape features in the Douglaston Historic District.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right.
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lefty.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Approved. Thank you.
See you all live.
Yes, nice to see you too. We'll move to the next item.
Right, the next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 23-03630. Application for an advisory report in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1117, lot 1, Prospect Park Scenic Landmark. This is a primarily naturalistic style park designed in 1866 to 73 by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. The application is to install signage throughout the park.
Good morning, I'm Sybil Young, I'm Parks' Historic Preservation Officer. I'm here today to present the installation of standard freestanding signs within Prospect Park. These standard signs have already been approved by the Public Design Commission for use throughout the park system. However, Prospect Park being a scenic landmark with dual jurisdiction, we are here today seeking an advisory review from Landmarks for the installation of the signs. You will see the signs are already in place. They were installed after the Public Design Commission approval. So Parks developed a comprehensive signage program that was intended to standardize the design, content, material, and placement of our signs throughout the park system. These are the goals of that signage program. Importantly, that they meet ADA guidelines. They aim to reduce visual clutter within our parks by limiting the number of signs, removing obsolete, old, and damaged signs. Within Prospect Park, we removed around 200 old and damaged signs. And importantly for Prospect Park, they are placed in locations that are visible and can effectively communicate with the public, but not detract from the scenic landmark or placed in front of significant architectural features. This is a breakdown of the type, size, and number of signs installed within the park. There were 42 freestanding signs installed. Prospect Park is 526 acres, so that's about one sign for every 12.5 acres. Using the same math, having removed 200 signs, that was removing about one sign every 2.5 acres. The signs are constructed of a durable resin material and mounted on 4x4 wood components. These are all materials that Parks has in-house. We can produce these signs on our own, which is very helpful for replacement or repairs to the signs. If we need to make a change, add a rule, we can do that on our own with not too much expense. And again, they meet the ADA guidelines for height and visibility. So I'm going to go through all of the signs and I'll try and go through very quickly. But of course, in the end, I'm happy to go back to any location you might want to look at more closely. What you're typically going to see is at the entrances, we have our standard rule signs, and generally there's one sign at each path entering the park. And then stepping within the park, there are our barbecue rules, playground rules, and then one bridle path rule sign. And we're going to start at the western entrance off Bartol Pritchard Square and then work counterclockwise around the park. So within that entrance, there is a barbecue area. And then off the West Drive, there's another barbecue area. Along the West Drive at the lake, another barbecue area. And the southwest corner entrance. And within that entrance, a barbecue area. And the one bridle path rule sign. The southern side barbecue area on Parkside Avenue. And the southeast entrance. And a barbecue area within there. This is the eastern side of the park by Lincoln Road Playground. The Nethermead barbecue area. This is the entrance just below the Prospect Park Zoo. The new entrance on Flatbush Avenue. And now we're at Grand Army Plaza. Barbecue area just at the end of the Long Meadow. The Garfield Playground. Garfield entrance. 3rd Street entrance. Litchfield Villa entrance. Picnic House barbecue area. Bandshell barbecue area. 9th Street entrance. 11th Street. Barbecue area south of the Bandshell. This is not Prospect Park, but just to give you an idea of that, what our signs looked like previously and that signage clutter that we aim to get rid of. On the upper right here, you can see we have signs noting the name of the park, clean up after your dog, new sign for a new rule. Now it's all nicely consolidated on one simple sign. This is the last slide. I do want to note that as part of this application, we are also including these brighter yellow signs. These are signs that are rules related to public safety that we want to have very prominent and high visibility. So we are including that as part of this application.
And how many of them are the yellow signs?
Well, within Prospect Park, currently they are removed. They were addressing the rule about no e-bikes being allowed in the park, but currently there's a pilot program allowing them, so they've been taken off. But we'd like to reserve the right to put yellow signs there, should there be a need for that or another rule that is related to public safety?
Okay.
Have a close up of that one.
I don't think I do. Let me see if there might be. I don't think we have. We tried to take the photos from a long view so that you can see how they sit in the landscape, unfortunately. So, but they're 12 by 18 and they're of the same material as the standard signs.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
For every open space, you would have two signs, correct?
Sorry, for every
space, you would have two signs.
Not necessarily. There are a few smaller barbecue areas that just have one sign. And then depending on the size of the entrance, if there's only one path entering, there's typically only one sign. But at the larger entrances where, you know, the paths entering are quite far from each other, there would be a sign in each path.
Right. Other questions? Commissioner Levy? Sorry.
So the yellow signs. So are you saying that these signs could be changing or that you could be adding more, given the fact that you might want to have more than one message? Like if these signs are about, I'm just saying this, e-bikes, but then you want to have a sign about something else, what would you do?
So even if we had more than one public safety concern.
Exactly.
I would, because we can produce these in-house, ideally we could fit that information on one sign. You know, Parks as an agency now is very mindful of our signs and really trying to avoid that kind of cluttered appearance. So I think we would do everything, you know, to prevent just, you know, the slapdash, you know, yellow signs all over these. So hopefully we can limit it to one.
So, but what I don't understand also is that what's the size of the typeface on that? If you add more information, let's say there are 3 things you want to, then if it's not, if the font isn't large enough, then it's just sort of a small informational sign.
Right. Well, the yellow signs would really be limited to public safety. So currently we don't have any, and you know, I don't envision there being, hoping there's not going to be too many real public safety concerns. They were really only for the e-bikes, and then everything else is incorporated into the standard signs, which again, we can change to add new rules. You know, I'm not sure what other public safety issues may come up, but we just kind of wanted to have that option. And
it could be anything, stay in your lane.
Well, no, but certain things, those are rules and those would be incorporated into the standard signs. It's really when they need to alert someone of
so then
danger.
One more question. Where are you putting these signs?
The
public safety signs.
They are attached to the wood posts of the rule sign.
Oh, okay. All the time.
Correct.
Okay.
I think as needed, right? And there are none now. So
there may be a leftover one that hasn't been taken away yet, but most of them have been.
okay, Commissioner Chu and then Commissioner Goldblum.
Just in the interest to keep your program of simplifying and keeping the clutter down, because I think that's great. And I think it's great that if these are located in places they weren't before and they're helpful and they get rid of clutter where they were, that wasn't being very helpful in terms of location. Has that in fact been working well? Do you find that this
I think so. And
this approach?
No, I think it's, you know, as noted, we'd have a random rule here and there, having everything in one place for our Parks Patrol officers, for everyone, you know, to be able to find it all in one location. Very successful.
So I guess my only comment here would be if there was a way to incorporate the yellow notice onto that designed piece that you guys can make easily in your own shops, which I completely understand the need for that. Maybe it could be attached in a way that was a little more elegant, that felt like it belonged there. And therefore, there's always the opportunity to have it or to take it off of the main 2-post sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly look into that.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum.
Were there any signs that were the parts originally that would have a similar, job?
You mean historically
Yeah.
what existed? We did look for photos of historic signs related to this and we were not able to find any.
Does the staff know if there was a signage program of any kind by Fox and Altogether?
No, not that we know of.
And the material of the posts, that it looks like it's kind of got that greenish treated wood tint, is that correct?
It is a what is it? Eastern white pine, pressure treated.
So do you expect it, apart from placing in the soil, do you expect it to turn gray or color, or will it stay that nice?
I think it will stay that nice.
And the signs themselves are made of?
It's a resin material.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Commissioner Chen.
Just to follow up on that, the question from Commissioner Goldblum. Has the Parks Department ever done any special, given that we have special scenic landmarks, like, that, take for example, light fixtures. We do have antique light fixtures with Department of Transportation on certain contexts that you will put it in. Has there been any scenic signs, so to speak, that you have in your inventory or in the past?
So you mean signs specific to like a program for scenic landmarks? We don't have that. We have our nonprofit partners at some of our parks have the option to perhaps develop their own signage, branding, design. However, the cost to produce, maintain, install, all of that is often beyond capabilities. So we stick with the standard park signage. When it is designed, though, we do have in mind that we have scenic landmarks and historic parks and historic landscapes. So trying to do a design that was simple and would fit within scenic landmarks was certainly something considered in the overall plan for signage.
So the conservancies might have certain signs that they have used in the past?
Yeah, Central Park has its own branding. There are perimeter signs on Prospect Park that includes information from the Prospect Park Alliance, but within the park, they're using standard park signage.
Okay, any other questions? All right, let's move to public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting there's no one here, I'll turn it over to Gregory to take us through any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a few signups in advance for this item. First, we'll be hearing from Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society of New York. So Christina Conroy, I am promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Excuse me. Now, we are very disappointed with this application. The signs in question have already been installed without commission review. There are many other seemingly permanent signs near them, which the presentation photos exclude. And the presentation doesn't tell us which, if any of those signs are to be removed. The commission is given a false view of the extent of signs and their effect on the landscape. Older cast iron signs exist near entrances around the park perimeter, designed years ago by the Prospect Park Alliance, working with LPC staff. They were intended to hold maps, which are now under use. Some are immediately adjacent to the new general rule signs and could easily accommodate the list of rules, thereby eliminating the redundancy of the new signs. Aside from that, there are, of course, 19th century precedents for signs which are supportive of the naturalistic character of the park. The signs being presented today represent a failure of imagination and effort. They are Parks Department standard issue and look like construction signs. They are unworthy of a nationally important work of landscape architecture. They're heavy and clunky, they're intrusive, ineffective, too many in number, and interfere with the scenic views and architecture of the wonderful neoclassic entrances. Seen from the back, they're both intrusive and devoid of function. By eliminating the needlessly repeated park name and park logo, the size could be significantly reduced and they could be supported by a single slender steel post, minimizing the bulk and intrusiveness. We ask the commission to take a leadership role and demand better of the Parks Department. The park should redesign the signs to be less bulky, more harmonious with the historic park, reduce their number, locate them carefully in relation to architectural and landscape features, and consider the combined effects of all signs, both existing and new. Or better yet, parks should think about innovative and more effective ways to improve the public about rules and enforce them. And we ask the Parks Department whether they commit to undertake whatever revisions the Landmarks Commission puts forward to them and resubmit the proposal. Please look at our photographs with the commentary that are part of our written testimony. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC is chagrined that the signs in this proposal have already been installed in Prospect Park. The proposal maintains that a goal of this project is to minimize the number of signs and remove old signs, yet this proposal shows a catalog of randomly located signs. The proposed signs themselves are Parks Department standard issue and don't take into account the special historic nature of this park, the finest example of pastoral landscape architecture in the United States. We would love to see the Parks Department and LPC develop a master plan for more coherent, consistent, and unobtrusive park signage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we will be hearing from Jeremy Woodoff. Jeremy Woodoff, I am promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak. I will also note for the record that Jeremy Woodoff will also be speaking on behalf of Michael Gotkin in additional testimony.
Thank you and good morning, commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff speaking now for myself. I agree with the testimony of VSNY and HDC regarding the particulars of this application. I want to explain further the reasons behind my own view that the proposed signs are not appropriate. All parks, including Prospect Park, require features necessary to provide comfort and information for visitors. Olmsted and Vaux knew this well and included the full array of these amenities, including signs, and they most definitely did include signs in the original design. In any well-designed park, but especially in a naturalistic and picturesque park like Prospect, these necessary features were designed to be visually secondary. That is, they were to fade into the background so as to interfere as little as possible with the overall aesthetic purpose of the park. In Prospect Park, that purpose, of course, was to take visitors into a simulation of nature and to separate them completely from the visual, oral, and psychic turmoil of the urban world outside the park. Calvert Vaux and Jacob Ringwald designed an array of these features in rustic and picturesque styles. They chose these styles not because these were the most fashionable at the time, but because they were best suited to keeping the features secondary in the landscape. Ironically but truly, picturesque Victorian designs are often the least intrusive in romantic, naturalistic style landscapes. And the second reason for these designs is that when the visitor does focus on the object, because he needs a drink of water or a place to sit or a place to get a snack or information, or because her eye just happens to rest on the object, she would see something beautiful. Beautiful and fitting because the object's design was congruent with the overall park aesthetic. It did not intrude. It did not look like something from the world outside the park to spoil the view or the illusion. Recreating Vaux and Mole's designs would be ideal, but there are other ways to meet the criteria for these kinds of features, so they're both secondary and in aesthetic harmony with the park. Appropriate design and placement of signs requires careful study, attention to detail, and understanding of the particular park aesthetic into which they are to be introduced. By these criteria, the proposed signs fail profoundly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, and again, speaking on behalf of Michael Gotkin, Jeremy Woodoff.
Okay, thank you very much for your indulgence. Michael was unable at the last minute to be present. As a landscape architect and preservation landscape consultant, I concur with my preservation colleagues that the proposed park signs that have already been installed in Prospect Park are ungainly, ugly, distracting, add to visual clutter, and are without precedent for historic park signage. I also want to draw the LPC's attention to the fact that these same signs have been installed recently at other New York City parks, including scenic landmark parks, without LPC or PDC review. And I just want to say parenthetically that the fact that PDC approved these for citywide use, apparently without any consultation with landmarks about scenic landmarks, demonstrates a real flaw in the review process. Back to Michael's testimony. One of the basic tenets of Frederick Law Olmsted's philosophy of park design is that the park should provide an immediate verdant contrast to the surrounding city, and that objects and cares associated with the city should be left behind as one enters the park. These new signs that repeat the same litany of park rules are in complete opposition to that philosophy. The signs are gigantic and cited in a way that they call attention to themselves and detract from the park landscape. Some of the signs are also sited right in the middle of a pastoral park lawn or up against scenic park plantings. I also wanted to point out an equity issue, as Central Park has been able to avoid the intrusion of these unsightly signs. Then why should Prospect Park and Riverside Park be burdened with them? For that matter, these ridiculous signs installed without any city agency reviews are out of place in any city park. It seems like every new New York City Parks administration seeks to leave its mark on city parks. I remember when a previous Parks Commissioner, Adrian Beneke, championed what he called entry gardens at the threshold of city parks. His administration took a horticultural approach to park entrances. In contrast, the current Parks Administration has chosen to add to the urban clutter that competes for our attention by installing these large obtrusive signs at park entrances and within the park. I would ask the LPC to please issue a report that rejects the legalization of already installed signs at Prospect Park, and also call for a similar hearing for Riverside Park and other landmark parks where Parks has installed the same sign without mandated public review. Thank you for your consideration of this scenic landmark issue. Thank you again. That was Michael Gotkin's testimony.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through the attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that the Brooklyn Borough Board recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you very much. So Sybil, I'd like you to ask you if you'd like to respond to any of the comments we've heard.
Sure. Thank you so much for all of those comments. Appreciate hearing them. And I think I'm probably just going to end up reiterating some of what I said previously, that this was a significant reduction in the number of signs within the park. And, while these were designed as a park-wide initiative, we really did consider, our historic parks when creating these designs. They're dark in color, as simple as possible. As far as the locations, they do have to be visible to the public, but we did give thought to where they're placed off to the side and trying to avoid placing them in front of any architectural features. So yeah, that's.
And so there was testimony that some of the old signs still exist. So if that's the case, the intent is to remove all of the old signs.
So yes, if there are standard rules signs that exist, those should all, if they're not gone already, they should be on their way out. There was some wayfinding signage approved by the commission, I think, quite some time ago, that still remains within the park.
Okay.
Not in great shape. Hopefully at some point there'll be a wayfinding, campaign within the park, but those I think are still there.
Okay. But the 43 of these across I think it's like the math worked out to one for every 12 acres. Is that what you said? Replaces 200 signs. Okay. All right, commissioners, any other final questions? Yeah, Commissioner Lutfi.
Could you please go to slide 36?
Sure. This one?
Yeah. So, the thing that's very nice here is that you can see that this sign is very discreet. But what about all these other signs? I appreciate the fact that you want to reduce the clutter, and in fact, these larger signs are reducing the number of signs that you have. But what about all these other signs and the fact that this is placed in a place which is probably an appropriate place for it to be, where there are also now 3 other signs and it looks kind of cluttered?
Right. So the sign to the left of the standard rules sign, what is the perimeter signage that I mentioned that was approved by the commission. I think they're cast iron from 20 years ago or so thereabouts. And those are the Prospect Park Alliance signs, related to their activities. The sign to the right is, if you look closely, it's attached to a police barricade. So I'm not sure if that's even there currently. Those types of signs come and go, but permanent. And and we are always working towards trying to eliminate that as best we can. We have very our marketing department it's a real pet peeve for too many signs. So it is something that we are always thinking about and working with our partners to limit signage. But there are sometimes these temporary, on sawhorses or for events and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, followed by Commissioner Jefferson.
Okay, thanks. This is for the staff. What was the testimony presented? A comment about the proximity of this to other signs, and that the images were not disclosed in the full situation. What's your view?
So I didn't see what they submitted to us, but as Sybil said, when I was on site,
Actually, Michelle, I'm sorry, because of the Zoom, I need you to speak into the mic. Thank you.
So I didn't see the testimony that they submitted that showed pictures of that. So I think I would need to see that in order to know specifically what they're talking about. But from being on site, as Sybil said, the nice ones that are in metal are Prospect Park Alliance and they're around the periphery. But I haven't seen any evidence, and I've walked through the park numerous times for other projects that we have, and I haven't seen anything that is not unlike what's in this presentation.
And also for you, does the staff have any access to historic documents that might show earlier or original signage?
So unfortunately, a lot of our files are off-site at this time, but we did, try to find as much as we could beforehand. And as Sybil noted before, I haven't seen anything that's historic signage.
Is that the case for other Olmsted parks as well, or were there things that we could draw upon, maybe not related to Prospect Park?
It's a good question.
So, and Bernadette, I don't, sort of as a resident parks design and Olmsted and Vox expert.
I will say we rely heavily on the Parks Department and Central Park Conservancy's archives because we don't have Central Park vulnerable any landmarks, so there's not record that they have.
Yeah. So okay. Commissioner Jefferson.
I just want to be clear on page 16, the center image am I approving a sign with the yellow attached to the leg? Is that what I'm approving for all the parks? For this particular part?
So, Sybil, I think again, just sort of clarifying so there are 43 of the green signs, which have the rules and other information. And then on an as needed basis, when there are public safety hazards, a yellow sign may be attached to the post. And currently there are none, but they are shown in the photographs to show you what that would look like.
That's going to happen in the future. It will be attached to the post.
If there is a public safety hazard that they need to alert people of.
So I'm approving attaching it to the post.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But I think the expectation is it will not be on every sign. We don't know how many, but.
No, we would seek to avoid it as much as possible, but for certain public safety issues that arise, we have the option.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, let's move to close the hearing and have our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So
thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we are looking at this application in an advisory capacity. The Public Design Commission is binding both for two reasons. One, they have binding jurisdiction in scenic landmarks, design changes in scenic landmarks, and also for citywide installations. And but we are happy to have this opportunity to weigh in on this proposal. As was stated, it's a proposal to address visual clutter and accessibility, reduces the number of signs, or will replace 200 signs with 43 signs designed in this resin material on posts, and that there will be possibly these smaller 12 by 18 inch yellow public hazard signs. And we'll have to think about how we, it may be that we want to review those on a case-by-case basis, maybe approve them conceptually, but review them on a case-by-case basis. So depending on the comments, we can think about how we handle that, since there isn't a definite number right now. All right. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one? Our Parks Department expert.
I have my Parks background. Anyway, number one, I think that obviously this is necessary. Park signage is always necessary for the public. And, signage is a temporary emplacement. And I think we need to remember that first and foremost. This is something that gets replaced on a regular basis. And so the ability to replace it in-house is rather important to the Parks Department, because it can be subject to graffiti or damage. And also looking at, I don't know myself of any records of, Olmsted designed signage. And I think that this particular signage one is an improvement in general. One, it's going to reduce the amount of signage. Two, the color, the dark color is quite discreet. And, I think that the design and material and placement in general all is appropriate. And again, it's something that's temporary in nature and can be in the future changed without, very, very easily, and particularly easily if it's manufactured, internally. The yellow signage, I think everybody feels a little, it seems a little, I think everyone understands it's necessary, but it partly because it's just put on one side of the sign and that shows it's really maybe temporary and can be replaced. It just isn't particularly attractive. So I suppose we might include a message that parks could look at that issue and see if there's a way to find another way to deal with the emergency signage a portion of this application. I think in general, as I said, I don't find anything objectionable about, and I think it's appropriate and necessary, the original, dark green signage. I don't have any problem with that. So my comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Goldblum.
Okay, well, I have to say that I kind of view this as a person from Connecticut. And if you've ever been on the Merritt Parkway, you'll see that there are these really weird signs. They're standard cheapo metal signs that have like a kind of a zigzag pattern on the edge. And unless you're old, you don't know what that is. Because what they used to have back in the old days was actual wood sign with like kind of a zigzag cutout pattern. And these goofy little plastic flags on. And it was a significant character element of this linear landscape feature. So I think with that in my head, I think about this as a disappointing proposal. I think that, from those few perspectives, first of all, I think that there must be something out there in the historic record that could guide a historically informed sign. Second of all, Parkman environmental perfidy of using this stuff that reaches into the ground. It's just it'll always have that kind of greenish hue as opposed to a natural wood which will turn gray. I think that's very unfortunate. And I just think that it's not it's a very inoffensive set of guidelines, but I don't think I don't think that's the standard by which I would think we should judge such a sign for a historic place. It's coming in historic view corridors inside of a historic designated park. So I'm not sure that innocuous and I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. I would trust staff to judge about proximity and placement. I think staff should look at that if they don't feel confident about it. And I think in terms of the yellow sign, a simple solution that might make them go a little bit less tacked up would be to have a bar below, wood bar below that went across, and you could kind of then attach as needed signage to that. It wouldn't be kind of tailing off.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So, first of all, I think there are good things to be positive about this proposal. Simplifying, meeting ADA, which may make it, even if we found a historic sign, impossible to do the historic sign. And the durability makes sense. And I very much appreciate in-house ability to replace because they will get damaged. So then I have a few suggestions. I think, as other commissioners have said, integrating the yellow sign, potentially having it stretch from one post to the other post, would also make it more durable. On that one post, someone could come along and knock it off. I don't know if you could do something to the backside, and I realize sometimes the backside is facing a lawn where you don't want people to walk, but if you could put a wayfinding map so you didn't need other locations for signage for wayfinding where appropriate, that might be good. I appreciate the effort to reduce clutter and other signs, and it seems like there are other signage out of your control, but where you can, coordinating. And finally, the post issue, potentially you could stain it with a light gray stain before it put out to mask the green color. And but I appreciate the effort, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I too appreciate, because I was having some concern, reading some testimony before the hearing last night. That's why I raised all those questions. But in the context, I would say the applicant did a very effective presentation of showing the context where the signs are placed. My suggestion is to increase the parks budget, obviously, and that's not likely to happen. Knowing the historical pattern, given the economic situation that we face. And so in the context, and I also defer to PVC and the previous resolution have reviewed this. But I do hear comments about, I keep on the biggest interest in my mind is the castle or it's in the land area. And the question is whether I think it's correct in the sense that we have so acreage in the context. It's not just in you spoke about the Deer Castle all the time, but in the vast expanse of these huge acreage. So I can find it appropriate in this context.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Bland.
I'm always pleased to know from parts that they are taking care of, but instead there's his important achievement, which is kind of testing the grounds of Central Park. He got it right at this park after a few other parks around the country. And I'm a little torn because of the testimony and the strength of it, and not knowing all these conditions personally, even though I'm a Brooklyn resident for 50 years, but the testimony was moving to me, and I think the idea of uncluttering is, of course, prominent and the test presentation that we heard, but I'm sort of playing between testimony and the presentation. I would agree with those who have already said that the other signs flimsy and tacked on, and if they can be attached in a linear fashion to both posts, I think that and function better as well will be more durable. But otherwise, I think we'll reject this and come back later. We're just writing a report with comments. And the fact that this has already been installed is a little disconcerting, but look at and go back. I'm sorry, was all that testimony that we was at the same level directed at the Public Design Commission when it was here for the first time. I'm just wondering. Anyway, I can say that I'm so, but I truly don't know what to say, particularly more other than go with the testimony. Not the testimony, the presentation from the applicant here. And the words sound right. I just hope that the testimony is somehow missing the point.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate a few things that we've heard. I mean, I'm completely on board with the idea of reducing the number of signs, decluttering, doing something that is visible, yet isn't in your face. I do think it is important in terms of placement that where there are going to be other signs, because so often the places where these signs are placed become the places for other signs because they're at central locations, whether they are entry points or key intersections at certain buildings or whatever. So it's really important that it doesn't look so haphazard. This signage is the brown understated. And I think that's a positive. I think it is a little unfortunate that you didn't select a wood that does gray over time. And if I could make a recommendation, it would be that if you can't do it now, I would do it for the future signs so that it does fit in better with the landscape. I also think in looking at, I am in total agreement about somehow putting that yellow sign, connecting it on the, either to the posts or to the sign itself where it can be hooked in and come out. I think that's a great idea. I also think in this particular location that we're looking at, this is an opportunity, I believe, for the signs for there to be a reverse sign so that people coming in the opposite direction can also see both of those signs. It's not going to be the case, but where it is, you might as well try to get people twice. And then then it actually looks sort of like a complete wraparound. Now, there are instances where these yellow signs seem to stand alone. I don't know if that's the case, but I thought I did see that as you went through your presentation. And so in that instance, I really, want to reiterate what others have said, which is like this whole lollipop signage thing. It just doesn't work. And it looks like it could be pulled out. It looks cheap. It will fall over. I mean, you're not doing the park or even the sign any justice. So I would look to do something that maybe just sort of, speaks more toward how the larger signs are attached, and you do it maybe in maybe smaller, but in the same kind of manner, and maybe in the same width, but small. I don't know. You would have to figure that out. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Master?
I think that the other commissioners that have spoken before me had some very good suggestions that I think we should keep in mind, especially with the yellow signs. I do want to say, I think this is an improvement because we have consistent signage, it's uniform. And I like the fact that we are reducing the signage from 200 signs to 42 signs. I know a lot of the testimony had to do with putting some type of unique signage, honoring the fact that we do have a scenic landmark. However, it looks as if due to budget constraints or, that's not a possibility right now. So I can find this appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu.
Yes, I'm not going to add too much to what I think are all good comments that my fellow commissioners have made. I do think that I would encourage a few things in the future in terms of graphics and signage. Is a lot of the material is in fact geared towards different languages and making sure that we're being as accessible as possible. And I think that's really important. I'd like to just see how these can be advanced in the future in terms of being more accessible In terms of their color and material, I don't think this is really something that's wanting to stand out. It's information that's there just in case people need to see it, the rules. And to that, I think the dark color makes a lot of sense. I just question the yellow color period. I did see another signage element that has been previously approved with a metal, more significant mount, and that had a bright green on it. And so again, towards consistency, maybe that is the accent green that's used as opposed to a yellow. So these are all things that I think just speak towards trying to look at consistency through the entire graphic and signage program and trying to find less ways to make things clearer. In terms of accessibility, I would also just encourage more symbols, because every time words have to be used, you need to translate it to also many different languages. That makes the sign bigger and bigger. Lastly, I would just say that maybe if it makes sense for the staff to review the locations to make sure that they're not too haphazard. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson.
I think my fellow commissioners have covered all the points I have. And
okay.
Sarah, could I?
Yes,
just have
let's
a
go.
question. Why is it? I think it's unusual. Is the comments that have been made since these signs have already been installed? How did that happen? That's not typical? Do we know how that happened?
I can't. Bernadette, I don't know if you want to answer it.
If this project moved forward as a citywide project to PVC and PVC jet flag, a subset of those were scenic landmarks, I think it was missed when it moved forward.
Okay.
We 11 of all of the city parks and parkways are scenic landmarks, and that includes Coney Island Boardwalk. So the majority of parks are not scenic landmarks. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll make the motion. I'll try to incorporate some of the comments that we've had here. So in the matter of docket number 23-03630, Prospect Park Scenic Landmark, a primarily naturalistic style park designed in 1866 to 73 by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Fox. This is an application to install signage throughout the park, and I recommend that a report be issued finding that the replacement of the previous mix of freestanding signage of varied sizes and finishes with this uniform set of freestanding signs has helped reduce visual clutter within the park, that the larger dark finish signs are typical of park signage in terms of placement, size, and materials, and provide needed regulations information, that the limited placement of the small interchangeable signs for public safety help draw needed attention to critical safety information, that the unfinished wood posts, that the materials and finish of the standard signs will recede from view and be within the natural landscape. It will blend in with the natural landscape, and that the combination of placement and limited number and size of the signs do not detract from any prominent vistas or significant architectural features of the park. However, I recommend that the staff confirm and review the proximity and placement of the signs, and that moving forward, the applicant explore integrating the yellow sign into the freestanding larger sign in terms of design and finish. And for those that are freestanding, think about the design and installation detail that would be consistent with the other signs, that the applicant explore addressing the back sides of the signs, and that the applicant also explore doing a stain with a light green finish, or in the future wood posts that would gray naturally. And I think that covers most of the comments, and we'll double check that and make sure. Oh, and the one final thing is Commissioner Goldblum's comment that that they do in the future continue to explore the historic record to look for potential models to inform future signs. Okay, I think I've kind of covered everything. Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, thanks very much. And thank you. We'll move to the next item now.
Next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 23-05416. Application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of the Bronx, Block 3981, Lot 2, 9 Westchester Square, the Van Shake Free Reading Room, Huntington Free Library individual landmark. It's a freestanding library building with Gothic Revival and Romanesque style features designed by Frederick Clark Withers, built in 1882 to 83, with a rear addition designed by William and James Henderson and built in 1890. The application is to install a ramp and railings and alter the front facade.
Good morning, Commissioners. James Musallo, Preservation Staff. Located on an irregularly shaped block, the designated footprint of the individual landmark building faces Lane Avenue, Westchester Square to the east, with the rear path leading to Trapman and Overton Street to the west. The architect, Amanda Schachter, is from Slow Architecture, is here to present the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Amanda Schachter and I'm principal of Slow Architecture. Great to be here this morning. I'm here representing the board of the Huntington Free Library and Angel Hernandez, the president. I'm going to start by reading a short statement from Angel about the project. Good morning, Commissioner Carroll and the New York Landmarks Preservation Commission. Thank you for accepting and allowing my written testimony to be included in the record. The ADA ramp project at the Huntington Free Library and Reading Room is one of the institution's most important innovations since it opened to the public over 130 years ago. The project aligns with the library's ongoing mission to keep our beloved landmark and its precious historical archive and public programming accessible to all members of our society despite any mobile limitations. I want to point out 2 important reasons why this project is so crucial to the future of the institution. First, the installation of the ramp, along with the renovation of the library's entrance and alleyway, will serve as the impetus to subsequent ADA projects. As we apply for more grants and public funding, we look forward to implementing new features at the library, such as extending the ADA ramp path to run through our backyard and connect with a rear accessible gate. Second, the ramp will also accommodate senior citizen patron and volunteers who tend to be a sizable demographic at the library. Over the years, the library has evolved into a repository of historical Bronx memorabilia and also receives many requests to host historical lectures and other related programming. Our senior patrons have been the backbone to our visitation for decades, so making sure we keep our library accessible without any impediments for them is a crucial priority. Therefore, as any other historic institution in New York City entering a new phase in restorative construction, the Huntington Free Library and Reading Room humbly requests the Landmark Preservation Commission approve the installation of the ADA ramp so we can continue to serve all citizens of this great metropolis today, tomorrow, and future generations to come. Thank you. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite photos, historical photos of this library, of the Huntington Free Library. As was mentioned, it's a structure that was designed in the 1880s by Frederick C. Withers. And then subsequently consecrated in 1890. So the number, the date 1890 is on the front facade by Huntington. First, it was commissioned by Van Shake. The Van Shake Library became the first free reading room at Westchester Square. It predates the New York Public Library. And then a subsequent edition is in the back by William Anderson. What I love about this photo is that you see that the lampposts say free reading room. So there was a sense of the specificity. It wasn't just the building. It was really about welcoming people to the place, not only through the building, but through the street furniture itself. And as we could see, this is a building that's in the Victorian Gothic style. It's a brick building and originally had a slate roof. And we're putting the slate roof back just to give you a sense of where the location. It's Westchester Square.
on the square itself. It's the Middle East Bronx. So you can see it actually from the 6 train, the subway, the elevated subway. It's about 4 stations before Cullen Bay Park to give you a sense of where it's located on Westchester Square. Here's a picture of the library. The good news is that while we're working on this project, we're also repairing the roof. So what you see today as the actual site is even better. They had put an asphalt roof at some point, but we're returning the building to its original slate roof, which has been wonderful. But for this project that I'm here for today, you can see we're looking from Westchester Square at the building. You have a low stone wall and the gate. To get into the building currently, you have to walk up 2 steps that are outside of the gate and then more steps just to get to the front door. That has been an impediment. So what we wanted to do was there is a side alleyway, and the idea was, why don't we open up to get access through the side alleyway? As it turns out, the site naturally moves upwards. So we're already gaining some of the elevation by opening a gate on the side, which will also let you into the backyard. There's a yard area in the back where they have activities, and you're already moving partially up to get to the point. And then the idea is you'll be able to switch back. I'm going to go back and forth between these 3 images just to explain a few things about the project. You're going to move up towards the back, and then you switch back so that you're able to enter the front entrance. So one of the things that we were interested in doing here in this project, the original building has that first volume. Then there's an octagonal reading room towards the back in the middle section. So we wanted to use that form, have this new ramp area kind of be in keeping with the form of the building, and using the least amount of possible area to create that ramp. So the land, you come up very slowly. The landing is another octagon in the ground. And then you come towards the front door. It's completely level, rebalance the doors, allow for push button opening. And one other thing that we're planning to do, I'm going to go backwards one more time, is originally the steps were on the outside of the gate. One thing that the Huntington Free Library has noticed is that people loiter on those steps. People are just hanging out there. The idea is to bring those steps inside, right into the thickness. They'll fit very nicely into the thickness of that wall. There are beautiful flagstones right when you come in. Those we're planning to keep. We want to keep the look as historic as possible, continue with what we have. Now, I wanted to point out again here, what is the current situation where we're going to have the ramp? So in a way, we're even restoring the building by putting this ramp, because at some point, the wells to the basement were covered over in concrete. And you see that there's a leader coming from the gutters just randomly there. One of the nice things is that in fixing up the roof now, we've actually been able to move the leader towards the front portion where it originally was. And it's going to be part of the ramp because we're going to have a planter there, as I'll show you in a moment. But something that we're doing here is just going to show you in the plan. Basically, this is the demolition plan where you see the cap of the well. And then the idea is how the ramp fits on to that. So you can see you come in through the gate, then you switch back. There's a planter alongside the building where the leader will water the planter. You come back to that landing, and then you can come in through the front door. Some elevation. So what you see from the street is the original gate. We're going to restore that low wall. Then behind, you're getting the landing of the ramp. From the side, we're going to use brick at the bottom, same color. What's interesting is that in the detail of this ramp, we're taking the concrete away, but keeping the original capstone of the stair down to the basement. So we're not removing any original architecture and then just building the ramp right on top of that, of what's existing. So in a way, we're improving what's there currently, something that had been added later. And so allowing this ramp to just run on top of that. Also for the railing, we wanted to think about the high Victorian Gothic of the building itself, but play with that, kind of like what was fun about the lampposts, that specificity. We wanted to add that specificity. So starting with that Gothic form, we said, okay, but let's add the open book, because this is a reading room and it's really about reading and documents. So that's kind of where the design of the railing comes. Another picture of the building itself. Lots of different brick patterns on the building. It's really a beauty to look at. And ending with the project as we'd like to see it in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have questions? Commissioner Jefferson.
Just one. This is an individual landmark, and the entry steps are original. And you said you're moving them into the wall because of some issue.
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
Okay, so we're basically just moving them. Let's say it's 2 feet in. I think what the problem is that they're on the sidewalk currently, and people are hanging out on the steps there. And it's a nuisance for the people inside the library. So they'd rather have the steps on the inside than have people hanging out there.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg.
What size are the new bluestone pavers in the ramp area?
In the ramp area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now we're using large pavers. So
I think that is a recent revision to the proposal. But thank you. Exactly.
yes, we made them larger. Thank you.
All right.
Actually, I made the
It's not reflected in the comments because it's
Yes.
a recent change.
That's
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
Existing gate, is that being retained and replaced?
yeah, so
And
the outer gate
Yeah.
is going to be retained.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And we will use, so there are other pieces to the gate. One thing about this project is that they recently sold the property next door, which was part of the library, and there's a lot of extra gate. So we'll be able to use any of the original gate to fix and restore any of the gate that's currently present, and as well to create the door. What we're going to be doing is creating a new door at the front.
And rebuild the base.
Exactly.
Foundation of the gate, which is a stone.
That's right. Yeah, so we're going to restore the stone base below and then create a new door of a gate.
Okay.
Okay, and just to follow up on Commissioner Jefferson's question about the steps that we're moving in, I think those are the outer steps that you're moving in. The steps at the main entry are being extended so that you have a landing that was code compliant for the barrier-free access, for the wheelchair access.
Exactly. So our idea is to keep all of the material to the extent possible, and we think that is going to be possible. And yes, we're going to take those steps and move them forward a little bit so that we have a full landing at the front and a barrier-free access through the front door.
So the original floor gets small.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Small.
Tiny bit.
Another one.
Yes, go ahead.
The ramp, at the end of the ramp, we have an hexagon. Okay.
Octave.
And I think you're echoing the room is the hexagonal, almost hexagonal room inside.
Yeah, we're trying to echo the room. Yes.
The issue for me is, because of the turning radius, is that why you need to hexagonal, or you could make it keep the same language of the business?
So it's both. It's kind of like a great opportunity. Sometimes you want to find that opportunity. And then you say, okay, what can I do? How can I look at the architecture and find that opportunity in the architecture? So right now we have this fairly narrow alleyway to the back, right? So we said, how can we use this best? First of all, there's a swale right next to the apple bank next door, right? So we want to keep the water movement there as well, right? So we had minimal access, and we said, how can we use it best? So we want to have a complete accessible path to the back and be able to switch back. I'm going to move through this. So when we're coming back towards the building, it's the minimum. So 36 of movable space, but then we need the turnaround space. So we said, how are we going to do this so it's not blocky, and also so it doesn't encroach on the path to the back? So we looked at the architecture and we said, okay, let's do this. And we try to bring it all together.
So it's both, it is both partly because of the required turnaround, and then trying to figure out a shape that would relate to the architecture and not impede on the other ramp. Okay, and I think in the renderings are great for clarity, but I think if you show a photo, this is pretty well set back from the street behind a big tree, right?
Yeah. So I'll actually go to the plan.
Yeah.
Give you a sense of that. Yeah, we have the tree there, as you can see. So first there's a gate. Then there's a small grassy area with a large tree. And as you can see, I think this front entryway still feels grand, still feels like something that you have to walk through to get to the front door. We're not really constricting it so significantly. We're just kind of expanding it a little bit so that people with wheelchairs can get in.
Okay, yes, Commissioner Goldblum.
Just to clarify, there is no gate now on that plan, right, at the street line?
There is a gate.
There is a gate.
Yes.
It's not shown on the plan right there.
Okay, it's a single kind of dash line there. It's
Okay.
so you can see the two thick lines in the front are the wall,
Right.
and then there's a line through it, which is the gate.
So the gate's shown closed. Okay. And there's no railing on the current
Oh, I know, just
entry steps as opposed to the street steps. So you're adding new railings left and right on the entry steps, as well as pulling it out, right?
yes, absolutely. I know what you're saying. Yeah, you can't see that. I don't know if it's in dots or something. Yeah, but yeah, there will definitely be railing to either side. I think I have that in the render, but yeah.
Got it. Yeah, you do. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, let's move to public testimony. Is there anyone in the room? And I will note there's no one in the room that is able to speak on this item. So I'll turn it over to Gregory next to take us through the remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a couple of signups in advance for this item. So first we'll be hearing from Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society of New York. And Christina, I am promoting you to panelist right now. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now, the Victorian Society is happy to support this proposal to provide burial-free access to the Huntington Free Library. We find the design is successful on many levels. The work will require the removal of only a small section of the historic curb and fence to gain access to the side yard. The section of the north facade, which will be concealed by the ramp, is minimally detailed. The octagonal shape of the platform at the top of the ramp is a nice echo of the historic bay window directly behind the ramp. The materials the applicant is proposing for use, red brick and bluestone, will match existing historic materials. And we feel that the neo-Gothic design of the new handrails will reinforce the character of the historic building, but will not cause undue attention to be drawn to them. However, there are several aspects of this proposal we feel are not resolved. First, are the applicants proposing automatic door openers for the large pair of wood doors at the main entrance? If the applicant is proposing door openers, they should show in the proposed installation. This includes the location of the typically required touchpad, as well as finish and installation details that will minimize the presence of hardware and conduit. And second, on board 3, there's a photo of the historic stone steps, which now extend over the sidewalk, and the existing retaining wall flanking those steps. We find the steps as they exist to be a very welcoming historic gesture. The applicant is proposing to relocate the steps inside the fence. We strongly recommend leaving them in place. At the same time, we couldn't find any notes about rebuilding the retaining wall. Given its visibly poor condition, we believe this is necessary and must be done at this time. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and say your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. Angel Hernandez, the president of the Huntington Free Library, is on HDC's Board of Advisors, but was not part of the Public Review Committee discussion about this item. HDC finds this proposal appropriate and very well done. We're especially glad that the applicant was able to tuck the ramp so elegantly around the side of the building, and we find the lovely geometry of this ramp and railing very much in the spirit of the building.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking through our attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Bronx Community Board 10 recommends approval, and I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Great. Thank you very much, Gregory. So the comments were largely supportive, but there were a couple of questions, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to those.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Actually, we added, I think many things were added over the weekend, specifically that, in both of games as well. And that push button is in one of the renderings. So the idea is that an ADA person could get in on their own with automatic doors. So I will show that to you. Maybe that was missed. It's close to the beginning. So luckily we did handle some of that. What we did find is we do have to move the stairs forward a little bit so that we get the full clearance. So that is something we measured from the beginning. That was important to us. We are feeling that this project is, let's try to do as little as we need to do in terms of moving original historic elements. But when the measurements came through, we realized we do have to pull that forward. So
okay,
as we move ahead with this project, that is the way we will be thinking about what we do, right? Our goal is always to touch the original as little as possible unless it means to literally restore it. So yeah, we have the push button we added in this render in the end as well. And I think there was some comment at some point about the low wall. Yes, it is completely our intent to fix that as we work, right? And some of the stones are pulling out. I mean, this is a great opportunity now to really take care of some of the things that they've wanted to do for a long time.
Great, thank you. And just to be clear, there will be no exposed conduit with the push plate for the doors. Okay. All right, commissioners, any final comments or questions?
Just a question. In this rendering, you're to the left of the entry stair, there's a strip of stone, I guess it's bluestone up against the brick.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was a light well right there.
Okay. On the left.
Yeah.
Oh, there is a well.
There's windows on the facade and a light well, right? But it looks like it's been filled in this rendering. It's still there.
Oh, yeah. I think probably what this rendering is missing is the shadow.
Yeah.
Nothing has been filled in. There's a moat.
There's a moat. And the
Definitely.
entry is in fact a bridge that goes into the doorway.
Yes, so that hasn't been left. You're just missing the shadow of this image. So the moat is still there. We're not touching anything to the left of the door.
You're not, okay.
Okay. All right, so let's move to close the hearing and have our discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we have our proposal for the Huntington Free Library to address barrier-free access by constructing a ramp with railing and pushing out the stairs to create the required landing, and then modifications at the street front to create access to the ramp and to bring the stairs into a line with the wall. And this would include restoration that would be needed at that time. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think this is remarkably well done. The site helps for one's health issue with regard to issue and fighting it. I think often we tend to think that the insertion of a new rail in this case it's medicinal, but I think it's actually the right thing to do in this case. And the inventiveness of the book, I think, is a remarkable, wonderful, personal kind of element of the design, which seems to be so lacking so often in contemporary architecture. So I think it's very well done.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi. Oh, sorry, she stepped out. Commissioner Master.
I agree with Commissioner Bland's comments. I think this was extremely well done. I'll also note that the building is a little bit set back. So a lot of the new installations, including the ramp and the new railings, are not going to be as visible. And I think it's important to move the steps for security reasons.
Okay, Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, I think it was a very well thought out proposal. It's a beautiful existing historic structure, wonderful, almost a folly at this point. I'm just trying to look at everything in terms of what is there and how great it is and what you're doing to improve accessibility. I completely support. The only comment that I have is the guardrail on the ramp seems very ornate, and I look at all the historic pictures. I was trying to look at the gates, and they're very restrained and simple, very transparent, which give a very open view to the structure behind. And this is my thing. I want to hear what my other fellow commissioners think about this. Otherwise, I completely think the proposal is acceptable, except I wonder if it needs to draw that much attention to itself. I feel like the beauty is the structure. The railing is not a part of it. It never was. The gate was never a part of the design. It's really just to provide protection and separation. And I wonder if it detracts because it's not historic. And it is more ornate than anything there. And that's my only comment. I think it could have been done easily with the consistent picket approach, green, and been a handsome addition and be practical and served and not really bring too much attention to itself.
Okay, thanks. And I wonder if we could also have an existing condition photo up, because I think that we'll have a better sense of the siting that way. Commissioner Jefferson.
Well, let me start by saying this is a beautiful project. Well done. It's a landmark, individual landmark, and the degree of difficulty, the degree of restraint for me has to be carefully thought through. And so the moving of the entry stairs to me is I think it's beautiful where they are, and two people stand on them and talk. It's fine. It's been there for a long time. So I disagree with pushing them in, and I can understand the turning radius of the ramp, and I can understand the language change, and I can appreciate that, but the degree of restraint that I want to see in a individual landmark is when I go there, at least 99% of it is what was there before. And that's my criteria.
Okay.
So,
and you're referring to the steps at the street?
The entry steps, yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Chapin.
I think this is a very nicely done design for access, and really accomplishes its purpose very well. I think I can actually support the stair movement, although it's a historic feature. because it's somewhat of a utilitarian feature, and I don't think it really moving the stairs slightly affects your perception of the building or the gate or fence. With regard to the railing, which Commissioner Chu commented on, normally, yeah, we ask that railings on these kinds of access be very simple, and it's quite true that nothing is very ornate here. I think it creates a kind of like it's new, it's a new thing. It's not part of the original. So you can almost look to it that because it's new, it's okay to have it be a little different and set it apart a bit. Then you've got a little sort of planted area next to it. So it's very charming. And I don't know, I think I find this acceptable because it's not part of the original, and it kind of then says I'm not original. So although it's very integrated, so that's where I'm at on it. So I can approve it as presented.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
Thank you. I initially felt and kind of still feel kind of like Stephen had in his camp there. And what I thought of is that the applicant said that there's a lot of leftover original railing. So maybe they just used the original railing. I mean, I think that the thing that's most charming for me about the new railing is the little book thing. And I think you could work that into the old railing as either a plaque or a medallion or something. So you could keep the design intent while maybe utilizing a little more historic material and keeping it lighter and more transparent. It's just, I mean, I can accept it as is, but I do think that the railing's a bit heavy, especially since it flanks both sides of the entry and is quite a prominent feature. I think the transparency is really very evident here in this photo, and I'm okay with the stairs being.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I think this is quite elegant. I agree with Commissioner Holford Smith. I can accept the railing and the moving of the stair.
Oh, Commissioner Taylor. She's there normally.
Sorry. I'm spacing out today, but I can agree. I can approve this.
Commissioner Chen.
I share all the comments that's been made. I think this is very thoughtful. This is very well thought out. I love this building. I mean, but in terms of commission, we choose comment, which is interesting. There are two thoughts. One is obviously the room is tucked behind the alley, so to speak, is behind the wall. And I love the comments, the initial comment about the original design made a reference on the light fixture about the book. So I defer to the majority to see what you think, because I thought that to me it just sometimes it may be good to put a reminder on the site.
Okay, so I think that, I'm also comfortable with the railing. I think that it is, while decorative, I think as Commissioner Chapin points out, it sort of allows it to read as a new element integrated into the design, but clearly a new layer, not to be mistaken. So Commissioner Chen, I think that means we have a majority in support if you're okay with that. Okay, so I think we can move to approve it as is, but we can ask them to, did I skip?
I can also speak to it.
Okay, great.
I mean, I think this is,
I'm sorry, I skipped you? Oh, because you had stepped out. That's right. But I
might as well give it a comment.
Yeah.
I think it's really well done. And this, the introduction of this new element doesn't anyway detract from the building. It's actually a lovely addition. And it's fantastic that it's on the side, because you're fortunate enough for it to be discreet. And in terms of the materials, this late, I think it's, perfect that they're making sure that they're consistent. And I mean, I'm just speaking really from my memory when I was looking at it. I can very heartily improve this.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So we do have a majority in support then. Commissioner Bland, would you make the motion?
Sure. LPC 546 Westchester Square. Park. This is a first first designated designed by Frederick Clark Rivers and to 1883, which designed by James Henderson and built in 1890. The application is to install and onto the front fence. I recommend approval. Provide free access to the significant features of the building or the site that the steps at the existing gate from outside to inside the property. Oh, is that not working?
Yeah. And you don't need it back.
I know, I'm a little close. Will enhance the security and bluestone slabs will be reusable if feasible. That the installation of additional open and gate at the front fence will be well integrated with the historic stone, retaining wall and outwork of historic fabric. That recreating the site behind the new opening and adding a path with no books on pavers to which existing will improve the circulation and then provide access to the ramp. That the building is set back substantially from the street and most of the proposed ramp will be located inside the yard, located in the side yard, limiting its presence and visibility as seen from public thoroughfare. That the design, materials, and details of the ramp, including brick at the base and bluestone paving, are consistent with details and the materials of the library. That the replacement of the deteriorated brownstone front entrance steps with bluestone steps will allow the new pathway, entrance steps, and landing connected to the ramp to be continuous, harmonious design. And that the proposed ironwork at the ramp and landing featuring an open book motif will relate well to the library theme as a whimsical decorative element and will enhance the overall design.
Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, so that's approved as is. But as you continue to develop it, if you do think about exploring simplifying the railing, I think that would be welcomed by some of our other commissioners today. But good luck to you. Thanks. All right, we'll move to the next public hearing.
Next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 23-03199. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 634, lot 10, 130 Bank Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a Greek Revival style row house built in 1837. The application is to construct a roof deck and alter the rear facade in addition.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Courtney Wollaston. I am the applicant for this project at 130 Bank Street in Greenwich Village Historic District. Do I have control here?
So what you need to do is you need to click on the screen and then you can advance the slides.
I'm sorry, my information suggested that staff was
presenting for the applicant. I can change it now if that's.
Okay, all right. So actually, did we want to have the staff present it? Okay, let's just do that. And
Yes.
the applicant will notice here if we have any questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Robert Watkins, Preservation Staff, presenting on behalf of the applicant. The item before you is 130 Bank Street, which is located on the south side of Bank Street between Washington and Greenwich Streets in the Greenwich Village Historic District. For reference, here are existing condition photos of the front and rear facade and historic tax photos. I'll be walking you through the details of the proposal, which is to alter the rear facade, the existing rear extension, and construct a roof deck. This item is before you today because the rear facade is visible through a gap in the street wall on Washington Street. Photo 3, which is the second photo at the top, on the second photo to the left, depicts this view. The subject house is the white building visible above the wall. You're seeing the return of the rear facade and the profile of the extension. The first component of the proposal involves raising the parapet of the rear extension approximately 3 feet 3 inches and constructing a deck on the roof of the modified extension. The second component is to modify a window opening at the 3rd floor to become a door by lowering the sill and installing a spiral staircase that provides access from the store down to the roof deck. Here are section drawings comparing existing and proposed conditions. At the bottom of the slide, you can see the existing conditions with a pitched roof on top of the extension. The proposed section drawing above that shows that the pitched roof will be eliminated with the installation of the roof deck. These are the proposed details and a material palette for the work. The modified parapets will be done in brick, and the west-facing parapets on the side of the extension will be painted white to match the facade below. The roof deck will have black finished metal picket railings and porcelain pavers, and the spiral staircase will be black metal. The door will be a white painted wood multi-white door. Here are the existing condition floor plans and proposed. The applicant constructed a mock-up showing the profile of the raised parapet at the rear extension, the railings of the roof deck, and the outline of the spiral staircase. Photo 2, which is the second photo on the left, is an annotated photo of the mock-up outlining the different components. In the image on the far left, you can see how the mock-up will be visible through the gap in the street wall above the wall. And as a reminder, the photo on the far right shows the visibility from the public thoroughfares with less foliage. Finally, the applicant has provided this rendering of the proposed work at the rear. Thank you, and the applicant is here to answer any additional questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions on this? All right. Not at this time. So let's move to public testimony. Is there, and I will note there is nobody in our hearing room, so we'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I'm looking at our attendees list and I do not see any hands raised. I'll give it one more moment to see if anybody clicks on the raise hand button. I do not see anybody with their hands raised, so I will just note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends denial as an unwelcome intrusion of non-historic elements to the building, especially in that they are clearly visible from a public thoroughfare and that there are other possibilities to providing access to the proposed deck. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Oops, thank you. So now I'd like to turn to the applicant and ask if you would like to address the community board's comments.
Sure, thank you very much. So there actually isn't a good viable access from the switchback stair hall. And let me see, Robert, if you want to go back to the section, please. So from the second floor, which would have been nicer to access this, the floor height shown in item 3, the top left, the floor height of that landing is lower than the existing roof. And we don't want to affect the overall architecture of the room so that you would have a plinth coming into the space of that existing den. So I don't agree that it's not accessible from anywhere except that location. The two windows that are, the sills are close to the level of the roof deck, you would have to have stairs projecting into the room. And if the rooms themselves are quite small and it is a bedroom, and having a door and a platform and stairs coming from that bedroom would make it not a legal bedroom at that point. So I disagree. We could have stairs coming from the garden, but the stairs would be massive and it would take up the whole garden to get to that elevation.
Okay, and we'll just speak to the visibility again. I think your site plan shows that the sort of the view in is on an angle, so which sort of I think maybe limits the corridor through which you actually see anything. And then what you're seeing is, I think, just the top of it and the stair. If you look beyond the wall and fence and trees, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so it's, I think, under our terms, limited visibility. Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Okay, let's move to close the hearing. Oh,
I just wanted.
yes, Commissioner Chu.
The existing facades here that they're adding brick to match this existing brick above to raise.
To level the roof, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
And I think you mentioned this, but the reason that you're raising it, you can't keep it lower because of access to that space.
Well,
Or lower to be closer to your second floor.
no, because the top of the angle of the roof where it abuts the existing main structure, if you will, 3-story structure, is so high. We could bring that down slightly, but to level off the roof, we will have to bring the brick up. We did have a design early on where we weren't re-bricking and you could see the metal structure and it looked a little rough. So we thought it was better to build up the brick so that it hid the metal structure.
See the metal structure. I guess there's something back there. I guess.
Right, so the roof is pitched,
Yeah.
so to get the level structure, you either see what's under the deck and the framing or the brick, if they
Right.
raise the.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Question, I
Yes.
just want to clarify, because what's on your drawing on page 8, I just want to make sure, are you moving up the door so that the top aligns with the top of the windows?
No, early on in our work with landmarks, it was requested that we don't, and we keep the existing lintel in its location. And one of the requirements of making this work, we have a pretty short door. But you know, it's appropriate for the house, in my opinion. But the idea was to keep the sill of the door 18 inches minimum away from the top of the lintel of that little window below.
Okay, but because your rendering shows it to be at the same height.
I'm sorry, excuse that. No.
That's the reason why I'm asking, because it's not consistent.
We'll make sure to clarify that, but the idea is to keep the existing lintel in its existing location of that window and drop the sill so we can create a door.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, let's move. Yeah.
Sorry,
That's okay.
And the rendering, and this is what I'm looking at as well as what Commissioner Lumpy was mentioning. The rendering at the end is confusing.
Yeah.
And what's above, we're not looking at all because the rendering is really strange up at the top of the roof. And I assume that's not a part of this application at all.
No.
Okay,
No, no.
big hole up there. I can't understand. At the top.
No, and there is that is
That's-
similar to how it is. There's dunnage that predated the client buying the house. But no, that's not part of the application.
Okay, and the push roof probably comes all the way down to the exterior wall. It's just missing some
Correct.
in the
Yes.
model. Okay,
Yes,
all right.
yes, apologies.
Yeah, sometimes these computer generated models doesn't do justice. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any final questions? All right, let's move. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And so this is, as we've heard, an application to put a deck on an existing rear extension. And rather than, in order to level the roof and not see the structure, they're asking to raise the brick and hoping to match the brick. And also what is nice actually is that they're keeping the original window configuration, which in these early buildings really identifies the original stair and circulation pattern. So they're just dropping the sill for that, but it does involve a spiral stair. And there is a limited cone of visibility through some other layers of fencing and wall and vegetation. So I think that actually is sort of consistent with the visibility that we've seen for other decks and other rear yard additions. Commissioner Lutfi, would you go ahead and start this one?
Sure. I think, this is this is an example of some, a situation where in a way less is more. Because while there are significant interventions here, I think they're simply done. So at the base of the building, I mean, if you look at that, it's, it's very, we're not that.
Yeah, it's just the deck.
Yeah, it's sorry. I also think the deck is simple. I mean, the railing is simple, even the circular railing, it's very understated. And I think they've done a good job of being fairly understated here, including the way they use the lighting. And the visibility seems minimal to me, so I can approve this.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Master?
I agree with Commissioner Lutfi. I think that it's very simple and that we do have limited visibility, so this is appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
I agree. I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Jefferson?
We saw the damage few days ago. I smile. It's appropriate.
Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I find this appropriate. And, I think that especially that they're keeping the existing fenestration positions and just working off that, which is similar to other things we've approved. And the base is a definite improvement, what they're doing down there. So.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree. I think it's the kind of thing you see in backyards. I think it's kind of nice.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg?
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Chen?
Yeah.
And Commissioner Bland?
Yeah, I think visibility is the friend of this applicant here, so it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
No.
Oh my gosh. Rush. We should have left. Sure thing.
In the matter of docket 23-03199, 130 Bank Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, a Greek Revival style row house built in 1837. The application is to construct a roof deck and alter the rear facade. I know that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features that the proposed work at the rear facade will only be visible through a break in the street wall from Washington Street and be seen in the context of other secondary facades, that the proposed raised parapet of the rear facade extension featuring white painted and unpainted brick will maintain the scale, character, and materiality of the rear yard extensions typically found at buildings of this type, that the modified masonry opening at the third floor will retain the lintel of the existing opening and relate to the interior stairwell, that the new deck, railing, and stair will be simple and utilitarian in design and will be consistent with decks and balconies found at other rear facades on the block, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, thank you. Now, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Thanks for your time.
Right, the next and final item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-01667. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1287, lot 14, 488 Madison Avenue, the Look Building individual landmark. This is an Art Moderne and international style office building designed by Emery Roth and Sons and built in 1948 to 50. And the application is to modify ground floor and second floor infill and install a marquee.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Erin Ruley, Higgins Place Barth and Partners. We're the historic preservation consultants for this project. I'm joined today by Bill Chalkley of FX Collaborative. They're the project architects, and we're representing the file organization for this new application at the Look Building, which we see here on the right. The application is for a new tenant entry on the 51st Street elevation of the building. As we see it in the photograph on the right, Look Building is an individual landmark designated in 2010. It's a 21-story modernist commercial building. It's designed between 1948 and 1950 and designed by Emery Roth and Sons. On the left in the map, you can see its location. It is situated on the west side of Madison Avenue. It occupies that full block front from West 51st Street to West 52nd Street, and it has 3 primary elevations. The main entry is on Madison Avenue, at the center of Madison Avenue, and then it's surrounded by storefronts that extend along Madison and onto the side streets. Here is the area of work. The new entry is proposed at the far west end of the 51st Street elevation. So it's going to occupy the single bay, the second bay from the west here. In 2014, the commission approved alterations to the base of the building. At the time of designation, the building's base had been altered completely. And so this scheme that exists today dates to that 2014 approval. So everything below the third floor here is non-historic fabric, the cladding at the spandrel, and then all of the infill below that. And so here is the proposed new entry. It includes new entry infill and a projecting sign band. As you can see in the existing plan on the right, we have the main entry on the midpoint of Madison, and then the new tenant entry at the far west end of 51st Street. And I think, as you can see from the design here, the overall intent is that it be deferential to the main entry at Madison. We're going to take a look at some of the details of that, but that it be deferential and have very much a secondary reading and activate at the same time activate this western end of the building. The design is sort of a marriage of the aesthetics of the 2014 scheme, along with some of the intent and concepts of the original 1950s marquee, which we'll take a look at. So there'll be no removal of historic fabric in this location. And as you can see in the plan, where it's greatly removed, it's a very large footprint and very far removed from the main entry on Madison. Of course, the commission has seen comparable projects over the years at other individual landmarks. The first three, the two at the top and at the bottom left at the Waldorf Astoria, those secondary entries, they're either residential or tenant entries that have been added at the landmarks, are in immediate adjacency to the primary entry. And you can see they're sort of stepping down from the primary entrance. Ours is probably more comparable to what was approved at the Woolworth building, where we're on a completely separate elevation from the building's primary entry. And we see that here where the residential entry for Woolworth was approved on the side street. Just a sort of look over time. On the left is right after the original construction of the building. You can see the base, very glazy double height expression at the base of the building with a vertical break at each of the pier lines, paired windows marking each of the piers. In the 1980s, the base was reclad and received this black finish, sort of a monolithic treatment of everything below the third story. And then, of course, it was designated, file acquires the building, and in 2014 comes forward with a plan to reinstate the sort of a contemporary interpretation of what existed historically. Just to look at the details of that original base in a little closer view, you can see the original two-story expression, all fully glazed from below the spandrel to the base. And there's something like an 8-foot grade change from the high point to the low point of the building. And so you can observe this in the reading as you look to the north as the grade drops down. So from the main entry at Madison to the proposed new entry, we have about a 5-foot differential that they're dealing with. But I think part of the original design was always intended to mediate between that grade change. How do you, because of the vertical rhythm of the bays, you don't get that sort of strong horizontal reading that would be sort of oppressive at one end and then rise up too high at the 52nd Street side. So that original design sort of mediates that whole grade change through a sort of transparent and highly glazed treatment. You also see the main entry. It was much wider historically. A full bay and a half on each side with the original marquee, just a simple metal fascia, and then the storefronts as they rise and drop at each side along to the north and south of the entry marquee. The 51st Street was always treated a little differently because the grade was so high. And so you can see shafts on the corner here on the corner of 51st Street, that was a double height space. So rather than even introducing a mezzanine or a second floor at that section of the building, that was always read as a double height space from ground floor up to the spandrel between 2 and 3. Just a couple of details of the original installation. Here you can see that sort of wide recessed bay that I mentioned in the previous view, the fascia or marquee that extended out along the entryway, and then the stainless steel clad columns that originally marked the pier line at the entry. And then just gleaning a couple of the key elements of the historic installation, that minimal projection of the historic fascia or marquee at the main entry, and then the alignment of the marquee with the bottom rail of the fascia that flanks the marquee. So in terms of the details of the 2014 scheme, you can see here just sort of some of the interpretive character that was approved. You have a double height colonnette or mullion that's marking each of the vertical bays, and that's executed in polished stainless. And then the brushed stainless, the horizontal rails sort of extend behind that and are sort of woven behind the mullions at the pier. And I think, again, trying to pick up on that, the vertical demarcation, but also very glassy infill of the original storefront. But what they did do is add a frosted signage band. It's a spandrel cover along here, and so it gets has a more of a distinctly horizontal reading, which also challenges the design that we're going to be looking at today. And then the marquee, this is there was an existing marquee from the 1990s that was reclad as part of this project. And so what you're seeing here is a marquee that projects about 5 feet from the building line and has a variegated treatment with polished and brushed stainless steel in the details there. No longer having those freestanding stainless steel columns, but more of a curved embedded or engaged column at the entryway. And I think here just a couple of details of the that 2014 installation. So you can see the projection of the existing marquee and the height. It's 18 inches in height. And so all of the sort of design cues have been taken to try to relate, but be secondary to what we see at Madison. And I think with that, Bill's going to take you through the specifics of the design.
Thank you, Harry. Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Shockley, an architect and senior associate at Ethics Collaborative. Happy to walk you through our design concept and proposal. We kind of came up with this notion of between present and past as a way of framing our response and intervention. I think the main thing we want to do first and foremost is integrate into that approved 2014 storefront that lines the entire perimeter. So our intervention is going to take cues from that, use the same materiality, and really try and respect and fit in and not create or introduce any new language to this. At the same time, we want to take some cues from the original design, which was more minimal and maybe muted. So the projections are a little bit less. The profiles are a little bit shallower. And the whole idea of a recessed lobby is something that we picked up on as a way of creating a moment on 51st for this new entry. So this is an elevation of the existing condition as we wrap around to the end of 51st. At this point, this is the highest point of the site. So all those horizontal mullions that were established on Madison Avenue that related to the entry and those storefronts come to this point, and it creates a pretty compressed condition. So we have the lowest mullion there is at 7.3, and that establishes the doors for all these storefronts, which is pretty minimal door. That next band up is at 9.3, and that's really the top of the signage band. And then you have another horizontal at 13, and the overall extent of the storefront is around 17 feet. Our proposal here is taking that single 17-foot wide bay and maintaining the kind of decorative bullnose stainless steel vertical mullions and inserting our new entryway in here. We've recessed the entry doors back to create a small kind of portal. This is a 9'3" tall portal for just a substantial size door, or as much as we can, and introduced this projected signage fascia to denote the entry when you would see it from a distance as you're approaching it from the street, and to differentiate it from that signage band so it doesn't get it mixed in with the signage and those openings along the storefronts. We're recalling the curved stainless steel corners at the main entry as a way of bringing the recess in and transitioning from the storefronts. And then up above, we're maintaining that horizontal storefront adjacent to the other storefronts along the way. And then this is a close-up as you approach it from the street. Again, a recess of about 4.5 feet to 5 feet, depending on some of the existing conditions that we'll uncover. The double doors, there'll be an automatic door opener there and a small pedestal to host the push buttons. Off to the side, you can see there on the right next to that man in the suit. And then all in stainless steel, a small soffit there that would host 2 downlights over the doors. The fascia projecting about 2 feet from the storefront. And that's in the kind of style similar to the main entry where we have the 2 bands, mullions coming across that engage with the mullions of the storefront, and then a smaller band in there in a kind of streamlined aesthetic. And that would host a sign for the tenant themselves. And then the storefront, again, continuous up above and beyond a vestibule. So here we are stepping back in a rendered, actually photograph of the site. We're on Madison and 51st. You can see on the right is the main entry and that marquee. And then you can see a bunch of cars, and we had to take those out so we could see a clear viewpoint of where our intervention will occur. And then with the cars back in, and you can see our portal emerging and the small fascia projecting out. And then if we take away that, so you can see clearly again. So really the signage band is interrupted. We've raised the fascia up to give a presence to that entryway and differentiate it from those storefronts. And then some plan details of what we're proposing. Again, maintaining the existing bullnose mullions that set up that 17-foot module of the storefront, setting back the doors, introducing this projected signage band that comes out about 2 feet from the building line. There'll be the stainless steel door pedestal and the curved stainless steel returns. So in a materiality very similar, if not matching, to the current storefront. And then in section, again, the portal 5 feet back, 9'3" is our projected height of that. The band itself is about 1'1". It's clad in stainless steel. Signage in stainless steel lettering, 10 inches tall, and then storefront to match the existing on top of that. And then finally, just the rendering. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we have questions. Vice Chair Bland.
Are the details of the marquee to match the existing marquee?
Yes.
And the projection is the same?
Projection here is only 2 feet. The existing marquee at the main entrance is about 5 feet.
I see. And the bottom of the marquee aligns with the bottom of the horizontal mullion. Is that right? In both cases?
In this case, we are aligning the bottom of our fascia to the bottom or the top mullion of the signage. Right. I think the existing marquee, they were dealing with some existing steel and that is actually below the signage band.
And why can't you make it the same?
Well, it was a trade-off. If we were to bring that down, it would create about an 8'3".
I see. So it's that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very compressed.
Thank you.
But so the marquee on Madison Avenue is now the top band aligns with that mullion. But I think as approved, we approved it going above the mullion.
That's right.
But it wasn't installed that way because of structural issues. Okay. All right. Other questions? And historically, that entry was much wider, but also broke that line and was taller than the banding, right?
Existing
in the historic photograph.
Existing main entry.
Yeah.
That's right. It did pop up. And I think that was one of the cues that we were taking from that original design was it did pop up above that. And it allowed the signage band kind of to float underneath the volume zone.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I have another.
Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I understand. Okay, so it would be 8'3", I see, because it'd be in between the 7'3" and the 9'3". Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, let's move to public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? All right, no one in the room wishes to speak on the item, so we'll turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We did not receive signups beforehand, but I do see Lucy Levine's hand raised from the Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I am going to promote you to panelist right now. And if you can please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this infill and marquee appropriate, stylish, and attractive. Our one suggestion is that the typography appears somewhat generic and might benefit from a little more consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond, but the testimony is largely supportive, but I guess the font maybe is what was questioned.
The font, yes. And I think that the intent there is a placeholder and that would be, the tenant is taking a large portion of the building. They'll have their own signage, but that is materiality and height of the intended signage, not necessarily the scripter font that we would be ultimately be realized there. And I also just wanted to touch briefly on the alignment, the question of alignment, because I think that the one of the important readings here is the historic reading of the bays, that the existing building has a much more horizontal emphasis than it did historically. So in the historic condition, we see that very continuous vertical bay rhythm with the paired the paired windows marking each of the bays. And there's a lot of movement throughout the signage, ups and downs, projections. There's another marquee at the bank to the north, and it's a very active storefront. And so when the 2014 scheme was implemented, that signage band became a very sort of defining horizontal element. And when we looked at very many options as to where this signage band should land, we felt like it was important that it not be woven into the sign band, the white band, and that it really have a separate presence from the storefronts. The main marquee at the Madison entry projects significantly. It has a very different presence. The whole concept here was that it be quiet and deferential to the existing design, and that because of that vertical bay reading, that we felt there's some play in terms of where you might align, which rail you pick up on, as long as you weren't floating it in the middle of something. And we felt very strongly that it should not interrupt the white signage band and that it should either be above or below. And if you move it below, it's a 7'3" entry. So it's really just the practical requirements of that very significant grade change, 5 feet from entry to entry. I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any final questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
a question about how you, on the facade where the entry is being affected, there's there's talk about double height space, because I can see that it's a much shorter elevation there.
Mm-hmm.
And your lobby looks like it's double height. So how is that lit? Because are those other spaces double height and lit as double heights? Or are they separate mezzanine up there?
There's a mezzanine.
There's a mezzanine that cuts them off.
Mhm.
So in your condition, when you light at night, you will go up into the upper zone,
Yes.
which is unlike anything on the facade. I'm just trying to understand.
There's because this is because there is a mezzanine there. These are all occupied spaces.
Separately lit.
Yes. So it's like more of a second story reading than
And the main lobby entry also has a mezzanine, a floor above it. The main one, the big one that your precedent is on. That one.
Yes.
Is there a photo of the straight on? There, that's it.
Yeah.
So because it's such a strong cut into and it pulls you right into to this entryway, it's divided from the upper level.
It is, and then, but there would be
Separately lit.
area.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other final questions? All right, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
Close the hearing.
And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion on creating this new entry on 51st Street that is modeled on the design of a commission approved entry and marquee on Madison Avenue. And there is a significant grade change. And so they're not proposing to align with it, but have presented that historically the Madison Avenue entry broke the storefront line. And that the commission previously approved a marquee on Madison Avenue that broke the storefront line, which was not which was installed actually at the mullion above the storefront at the sign band. So this one is shallower, but replicates in terms of details and materials. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think that the proposal overall is tastefully and thoughtfully done. And I understand the precedent, I understand the aesthetic. What you're departing from was the more recent renovation. I think the thing for me is that I'm just questioning is really the height of this overhead piece and what it does to the overall facade. When I look at it like this, I have no issue with it. I think it looks handsome. I don't, as a composition, it's fine. I just get concerned when I look at it from the corner and look across the whole facade, that is the only piece that seems to step up. The reason I was asking about the lighting is because I wanted to see the effect in the evening time and if that accentuated that effect of this one slot being different. And I do a bit feel like that will make it seem, again, an anomaly. I just wonder if you were to lower it just, I would think it'd be like 9 inches. I think your dimensions say 1 foot, about 1 foot for the whole height of the fascia. We're not dropping it the whole foot. It is aligning the top with the top, which would be about 9 inches, I think, 8 or 9 inches. You're at 9'3" or something would put you over 8 foot and change. It is a bit low, and I understand that sensitivity, but it is a small scale streetscape here. There are umbrellas that are at like 6.5 feet high that have a very more human sense to it. That's my feeling. I think it's completely acceptable, except I would like the applicant to look at lowering it so that the top is the top of the horizontal mullion there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I think the proportions of it are very well done. And I think the height, because it's an entry, because it's a door, you want to see it. So I can agree with this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed mind because I'm troubled by the fact, as Commissioner Chu, is that the horizontal is interrupted. The applicant presented that, the original had, the storefronts were of different heights and so forth. So that wasn't really the case, but it is the case now. And we're in this point of transition. You could argue also when you look at it directly, obviously that, you're not going to notice that. You'll just see the entrance. You won't see the whole composition. But I really on balance feel like it's just such a nice horizontal composition all the way around the building right now with the other entrance fitting in that this one should fit in. So I'm inclined to lowering it as well.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I think Stephen's solution is would be better, but I think this is appropriate as is. I think that looking at the original building where the marquee for the entrance to the building was, purposefully kind of out of sync with the horizontals. For me, since this is a kind of building entrance as opposed to a retail entrance, I think, and it is the only one on this street, I think it's okay as is, but I'd certainly support Stephen's suggestion, which I think would be better.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with Commissioner Jefferson. I think it's fine as is because it isn't a store. It is a lobby entrance, and differentiating it is good. I wouldn't have a problem with lowering it, but I'm quite fine with the way it is.
Commissioner Chan.
So same here. I think, is the choice between 9 for 3 and the lowering the top band. In fact, I think I hear Commissioner Chu's, but I'm thinking that it also then enlarges the mezzanine panel on the top. So from a pedestrian point of view, if you're walking down the side street on 51st Street, my mind will think that you will want to align the corner with the current proposal. So I can go either way, but I'd like to hear what the rest of the commission had.
Okay. Vice Chair Bland.
I'm in the both and as well. I think the key is to align with something, and they are doing it. And I think in either case, it would align with the horizontal. Something would align with the horizontal. I'm not sure it matters that much either. I think it's fine as is, but I can certainly support lowering it a bit as well.
Right. Commissioner Lefty.
Page 18, please. So, yeah. So, I think that's 18 minutes. Yeah, thank you. So first I want to say that I think the applicant's done a very respectful job. In terms of its proposal in connection with this very important building. But that said, I happen to feel like the strong horizontal banding of this building really calls to the marquee being at the same level as it is on Madison Avenue. We approved it to be higher. If it had been higher, then we would have approved this higher, but it didn't happen that way. So I can be flexible about this, but I happen to agree with Commissioner Chu on this, that I think it would actually be a shame to disrupt that strong horizontal.
So, and this is just to clarify, and this is really detailed, but what Commissioner Chu was talking about was just dropping it so that the top of the marquee aligned with that mullion. The one on the other side, the whole thing is below the lower mullion.
I understand.
Okay, so they won't.
I actually like his proposal because I think the difference will be imperceptible.
Okay. Commissioner Minister.
I understand the concerns about the horizontal band. But I also think that it's very important to keep in mind that this is an entrance. And when you look along this street at this picture, you want to make sure that it's visible and that you understand it's not just a retail storefront, but that it's a main lobby entrance. I don't find that this disrupts the rhythm excessively. If anything, I think it increases the visibility so that people will know that this is an entrance. So I'm okay with the height as is.
Okay. All right. So I think we have 6 who support it as is. We can ask the applicant to explore lowering it to 9 inches to align, but I think we have enough to support it as is. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make that motion?
Yes. 1 second. With regards to LPC 24-01667 488 Madison Avenue Look Building, individual landmark, Art Moderne and International Style Office Building designed by Emery Roth and Sons and built in 1948 to 1950. Application is to modify ground floor and second floor infill and install a marquee. I recommend approval, finding that the existing two-story storefront was installed between 2014 and 2016. Therefore, the work will not result in the loss of historic fabric. That the recessing of the infill and installation of a small marquee will be in keeping with changes made to the first floor storefront beginning early in the building's history. That the proposed marquee is modest in size and located on the side facade at a distance from the primary entrance on Madison Avenue. Therefore, it will not compete with the main entrance or detract from the composition of the ground floor. That the signage at the marquee will be in keeping with signage found elsewhere in the base of the building, and that the details and finishes featuring brushed and polished stainless steel and granite curb will be in keeping with those aspects of the existing storefront and main entrance infill, helping to maintain the unity of the building base.
All right, Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark.
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Nay.
nay, Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Nay.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion passes.
All right. So that's approved. But again, if you wish to explore lowering it slightly to align, I know that would be welcomed by some other commissioners.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, that concludes our public hearing today, September 26th. We will ask everyone to exit the Zoom meeting at this time, and we will see everyone next week, Tuesday, October 3rd. For public hearing and public meeting. Thank you all for your hard work today.